Well, a Merry Christmas and a happy holidays to everybody. I hope you're all doing really well. Hope you've had a nice festive season so far, and I hope you're ready for today's live stream. This should be a very interesting one. So let's just wait until YouTube confirms that we are actually live. And here we go. Yes, it has confirmed that we are live. So today's live stream is going to be angry vegans versus calm vegans. One is most effective? It's a very interesting topic, and it's one that I've been through. Okay, I guess I've been over it in my head many times, and the reason that I have decided to put this together today is actually I'm continuously getting messages and comments from other vegans on my posts, on my Instagram posts, mainly my Reels posts, and people are telling me, you're doing it wrong, David. You're bad for the veganism. You're bad for the animals. People have told me. People have even accused me of things like doing it and being like some kind of fake vegan because I'm secretly trying to harm the animals with my posts, and that's how aggressive I am. So this was happening quite a lot from other vegans. Well, I'll say quite a lot. It feels like it's quite a lot, but it's probably not that much. And I decided that, okay, this needs to be dealt with, right? I need to get into this. We need to discuss the different approaches and what works and what doesn't work and why. And I wanted to get into it and bring some nuance to the situation, as well as kind of get to the bottom of each of these approaches and which is the most effective in what scenario. And yeah, I guess just delve into this a little bit more to kind of handle these criticisms in a productive way. So that's what we're here for. But I'm not alone today. I do have a special guest. Anyone that checked the description would know that. And my special guest today is Alex Bez. He runs the page Amazing Vegan Outreach. He also runs an outreach organization called We Are the Free, I believe. I actually just forgot the name. I just keep saying WTF, actually, so I forgot the actual real name. We the Free, that's the one, We the Free. And it's a new outreach organization. They're launching, or trying to launch anyway, with the whole situation, with the pandemic and everything. It's not been too easy for them. But yeah, and Alex is going to join us today, and he's going to get into this with us. He's a bit of an expert in communications, runs his own professional trainings for vegans on communications, 2-day workshops. So I'm really excited to bring him in. So let's get Alex into the chat right now. Let's get him into the stream so he can introduce himself. And we're going to do a little swappy swap. Sorry, I forgot the name of WTF, bro. I just keep saying WTF, and I just had a lapse for a moment. How you doing, man?
Good. That's okay. It was fun watching you struggle with it. I was laughing. So. You're like, I say WTF. I'm like, oh yeah, we the free. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm always excited to talk about communication, and I know that I'd say like we agree on probably 90% of things, but I know that we have a little bit of different opinions on things. So I'm interested to explore our different opinions and kind of where we're similar and where we're not. So yeah, let's do it. Do you want me to talk? I mean, for anyone who doesn't know me, do you want me to tell people a little bit about my background?
Yeah, man. Give people a quick little intro to who is Alex Bez.
Okay, so like 30 seconds. I worked in sales for 19 years. For the last 10, I used to run and train sales teams. So I probably trained a few hundred salespeople over my career. And then when I went vegan about 8 or 9 years ago, first of all, I was an angry vegan for like the first 3 years. I was pretty direct. I used very direct language. I'm sure we might get into that in this talk. And then later on, I started applying a lot of the communication tools and skills that I taught in the corporate world, and started doing my outreach that way, and found it was pretty effective. So started Avo, and then started training activists. I've been to about 55 cities and trained over 2,000 activists through the workshops. And you mentioned we just started We the Free. So for like the past year, not just myself, but there's a team of activists that have been working on this project for quite a long time. And it's pretty cool because I think one of the coolest things of this project is that for the first time ever, as activists, we're actually going to be able to know if our forms of vegan advocacy are effective. So we'll actually be able to tell how many people took action after they spoke to us, how many people watched a documentary, how many people signed up for a vegan challenge, how many people actually reported going vegan, and all that data will come back to ourselves as individuals and to our groups and that sort of thing. So it's pretty exciting. We're launching probably within the next month or two. We don't have an exact date, but we'll definitely be advertising it. So that's what I've been up to, and that's kind of my background.
Awesome, man. A nice plug. I appreciate that. Getting it in there. It's a good plug. And I think, yeah, I'm really excited about it too. And I'm working, for those of you that don't already know about this, there is one of the same guys that runs this organization with Alex, or at least as part of the team. He also runs, and as part of the team that runs something called Vegan Boot Camp, where actually they have a similar setup where people who sign up to the Vegan Boot Camp through your link to go vegan or to watch documentaries or to do, learn, you get the same feedback. So you get actual data on what people are doing, and it's a very similar setup. So highly recommend you use that. And it's veganbootcamp.org, I believe, isn't it? That's the website. And it's in my description.
Yeah, the short form is vbcamp.org. And then when you sign up, you can get a custom link, and then you can share that custom link, and you can see how many people you've inspired to sign up.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, go check that out. It's in the description of this live stream. You can check it out, the Vegan Bootcamp link, and it's run by basically by almost the same team, I guess, right? There's a few members that are shared across the team. So check that out. It's really cool. So today we're going to get into this. In the thumbnail, you saw a few people, right, from left to right. And I guess what I wanted to get into today is from the left of that thumbnail, for the YouTube thumbnail, we had Rob Banks, and then we had Gary Yourofsky, and then I believe Joey Carbstrong, Earthling Ed, and then we had the Bosch TV guys, which they have like 2 million subscribers. They're like plant-based food recipe guys. And then at the end, I believe, I can't even remember the person's name actually. You suggested her actually, the famous, she's a famous kind of plant-based lifestyle recipe. Is it Elika simply? No. What was it? I can't remember her name.
Deliciously Ella.
Deliciously Ella, that's the one. So obviously going left to right, we've kind of got a scale of like, let's say far on the left would be considered to be angry in today's video, I suppose. And that's not to say that Rob Banks or Gary Yourofsky are just angry people, but they do mostly, let's say, angry communications. That's kind of what they do, aggressive communications, all the way over to the other side, which the plant-based lifestyle people, they pretty much only do completely indirect, non-aggressive communication. And then in the middle, we've kind of got a bit of a mix. We've got like old style Joey Carbstrong would be considered to be more direct and, let's say, less friendly. Current Joey Carbstrong is probably more friendly, still direct, and kind of the same as Ed, probably the same as you in most situations. And I fall probably most of the time on Instagram Reels. I will fall mostly to the left of Joey, in between Rob Banks and Joey, I would say, because I'm a little bit unfriendly. But then we're going to get into that. That does change, and it probably changes for all of these people as well. But what we're going to get down to, I want to get down to, is what is effective. And let's take a look, because I guess a lot of people aren't going to know who Rob Banks is. I mean, because I don't think a lot of people that are in the activism, let's say, scene quite as much as you or I. So although we know Rob Banks, I guess a lot of people may not. So I just want to show them what kind of stuff we're talking about when I say aggressive. So let's just pop up a video of Rob Banks doing what could be, considered aggressive. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can't really say this isn't aggressive, and aggressive isn't always a negative thing, actually. And in this case, I'd say it is a very positive thing. But let's check him out. Let's show what Rob Banks gets up to in his activism. Hold up, I need to get the audio on. Let's try that again. This is idiot proof, but I still managed to mess it up. Here we go. Okay. So this is Rob Banks here. You should be able to hear the audio. Now this is a video of him. This here is Kelly Rowland, and he managed to get next to her for a photo op or whatever. And yeah, he did this. You can watch. Oh, the audio's off. Okay, the idea, you can see there what he's doing. He gets next to her and he whips out a sign, and normally he would also be shouting, but I guess you can't really hear it. He's shouting there something along the lines of like, Farah is disgusting, Kelly Rowland is disgusting, something along those lines. He's shaming her basically. It's called fair shaming. But it's a bad example actually, because it's usually you can see him shouting as well, and it's a lot more intense when you see that, you know. Let's find another video of him just to give a better idea of what he's. Oh, this is a great one actually. Let's put this one up.
This doesn't bother you? How does this not bother you? Animal cruelty doesn't
Can you hear
bother
that?
you?
You know that.
It should bother you.
Can I talk back to you?
What are you going to say? How could you possibly justify killing an animal for nothing more than status? Tell me. I'd love to hear it.
Millions of kids
Yeah?
in the northern hemisphere, once man came out
Okay,
of
we're in New York City.
Yeah.
And you know what people have been doing for
You
millions
wouldn't
of
be
years?
in existence.
Living in caves. Why are you not living in a cave?
You wouldn't be in
Why are you not living in a cave then? So you've evolved past living in a cave, but you still want to defend what we've been doing millions of years ago?
Okay, so
No, you can't pick and choose what to evolve from and what to stay in the past from. The only reason you're selling this is because it's fashionable, because you're making money. It has absolutely nothing to do with what people were doing millions of years ago. You need to evolve. It's 2017. This is horrible. I dare anybody to go watch a video of a fur farm and watch an animal have his skin ripped off his body while he's still alive.
All right, so you get a bit of an idea there of what Rob Banks gets up to. And that was probably a lighter version, actually. That I mean, I was looking for something more angry, but he is normally a lot more, like, he shouts a lot. He uses speakerphone, and, you know, he's a lot more intense. That was pretty intense, but calm by his standards. So that's kind of like the one side of it, like the fair shaming. He's shaming that guy. He's like, you just, you know, you're a bad person. You shouldn't be doing this. Your excuses are bullshit, basically. And this is kind of the style he takes. And I think it's great. I'm a big fan, a big supporter of Rob, actually. I think his work is awesome. And then we go through, and I guess most people have, if you haven't, I mean, I'm not going to pull up examples of each person. I just wanted to show like the one extreme side. Most of you have seen Earthling Ed, and I guess most of you have seen recipe lifestyle blogs and stuff like that. You know what that looks like, right? So then now we get to the question. We have people like Rob Banks getting out there, putting out an aggressive direct message. We have people like Earthling Ed going out, putting out friendly, and, you know, we're going to be calm, and we're going to work together kind of message. Alex, which is the most effective way?
It's a trick question, and both of us know that.
Yeah.
At least I think from my perspective, it's all contextual. Context is so important, and the opportunities that we have to advocate for animals vary. Like, you know, in that case, what I really loved about the Rob Banks video is that the camera person kind of panned out or turned the camera over, and you can see there was a crowd of people watching this interaction, right? And so when it comes to social media, and when it comes to a third party observing this interaction, I think that Rob's message was great there, because even though the person with whom he's speaking, the fur seller, is probably going to be extremely defensive, and he's going to just want to argue back, the people that are listening to Rob on video, and Rob gets a lot of views. Actually, Rob's been on, I think some of Rob's videos have been on like TMZ, and like they've been picked up, and so millions of people have watched them. The people that are watching can observe this, and they can make up their own mind. And so I think that in that context, it's super powerful what he did there. He spoke very clearly, very strongly. I think that would resonate with people. And then on the flip side, like when you have a conversation, a one-on-one opportunity, if you start yelling at someone like that in a one-on-one conversation where you're actually trying to generate behavior change in that person and not in an audience, then I think there's a whole different tactic that would be more effective. So it's not a one-size-fits-all type of answer. And I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I'm seeing a lot of, and the main reason I wanted to get on here and do this, is I'm seeing a lot of people who actually, Rob has actually had this himself, by the way, similar responses to me, where people have, 1 minute, sorry, just fixing something, where people have literally told him, you shouldn't do what you do. It's bad for the animals. You should be more like Ed. You should be more like pick a person, right? I've literally seen comments like this, and he's responded to them in a similar way that I respond to them, but I've actually started to like not respond to it as much. But he said things like, he's gone and checked this person's account and said, you're not even an activist. How are you coming over here and saying this? For one, you don't even know what you're talking about. And two, what I'm doing is effective for the reasons you've just said, Alex. He gets on TV, he gets on TMZ, his videos go viral. He reaches thousands, if not sometimes millions of people by what I call cutting through the bullshit. Because, we can't, I see Earthling Ed, in my opinion, and Earthling Ed's success as something that is brilliant. I mean, his success is amazing, and it's all down to him and his team, and they're a great team, and he's a great activist, and he's done everything right, and that's why he's had the success. But I don't see that happening again. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't have a second Ed. Ed is Ed. Joey is Joey. Everybody is. You are who you are. You're not going to gain a load of, I don't know, let's say, exposure. You're not going to raise awareness the same way as Ed raises and get the same kind of reach that Ed gets by doing exactly what Ed does, because Ed's already done it. And if people want to see that, they're going to find Ed before they find you, if that makes sense, right? They're not going to find your work. They're going to find his work, because he is kind of dominating that specific thing, that specific style of activism, if that makes sense. So to tell people like Rob, you should be more like Ed, is to tell him you should basically not get noticed and you should not get the message out. Because if you start trying to be like Ed, if Rob starts trying to be like Earthling Ed, Rob's messages won't get seen by anyone, because people will just watch Ed. It doesn't make any sense to try and copy someone else, because if they want to see that someone else, they'll just watch that someone else. It doesn't make any sense. They'll just go, they'll do it that way. So yeah. Long story short, absolutely, I agree with what you've said. It's different hats for different scenarios, right?
Well, and also what you were saying was building on that, which is not just different hats or different strategies for different scenarios, but also different people, right? Like, you have to use your strengths. So Rob probably couldn't do what Ed or what I do, the types of conversations that we have. He might not be great at that, but I wouldn't be. Well, I don't know. I've done disruptions and stuff, but it's interesting. I just kind of want to highlight a little bit more about like what somebody like Rob does. And to me, what he was doing there was a form of disruption, right? He was disrupting life as normal. It's very normal for the first seller to be there and for people to walk by. He causes this scene, and he, his anger and his passion is palpable. It's tangible. You can feel it. But at the same time, he's not losing his mind in that scenario there. So he's speaking clearly. He's speaking strongly for animals, and the people that are listening are, at the very least, going to think about the topic. And that's I want to highlight that the point of these types of actions, or I want to give another quick example, maybe. I know that people have highly criticized actions, like direct actions, like Meet the Victims, for example, where activists will storm into a factory farm and cause a disruption. And I was fortunate enough to be part of one in the Netherlands where we did that. We basically disrupted this factory farm, and it made the national press in the Netherlands. And what it did was it sparked tons of conversation. So that act itself may not have necessarily inspired not necessarily, it didn't inspire the farmer to go vegan, for example, but that's not the point of the action. The point of the action is to get all this media, all this press. And then what started happening was they were having actual conversations. They were inviting activists into the news studios to have roundtables and to have discussions. I remember seeing some activists speaking about it, and I was blown away at how eloquently they were speaking. And of course, it was inspiring people. And as I was leaving the Netherlands, this is a quick little funny story. I was at security, and because I travel so much for the work with Avo, I hate going through the scanners, the millimeter wave scanners. So I always opt out of them, which means that someone has to pat me down. So this the guy that's assigned to pat me down is this probably 60-year-old man, and he comes over to me and he starts patting me down, and I have my arms out and I have that cow tattoo on my arm, and as he's patting me down, he sees the tattoo. He's like, oh, you have a cow tattoo on your arm. I'm like, yeah. I go, he's like, why? And I'm like, okay, here we go. And I'm like, because I like cows. And I don't eat them either. And he's like patting my legs down at this time. And he looks up at me. He's like, me neither. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm vegan. I'm like, me too. And so, and then I was like, oh, I'm like, hey, did you hear about that event in Boxtel, which was in the Netherlands, the farm thing? He's like, yeah, of course. I saw it on the news. I'm like, yeah, I was there. And he was like, oh, that's such a good job. He's like, I wish more people did stuff like that. And so he also felt inspired by that. Even though he was already vegan, he kind of, hopefully it inspired him to become a little bit more active and speak up for animals. So that's the purpose of those events, is to kind of generate buzz and generate conversation. Not necessarily So anyway, that was that's
it's useful, man. It's a cool story. Just to quickly just go back, someone said something about can we stop using the word aggressive to describe this? It's as if being aggressive is negative. Just to quickly deal with this kind of point for a second. Aggressive is not a negative thing. If somebody is aggressively playing a sport, we don't say that that's a negative thing, do we? Like if we have an aggressive rugby player, and then that's fantastic. If we have an aggressive footballer, an aggressive defender in football, that's fantastic. There's many ways, like, or an aggressive, I don't know, if you have a new I don't know, CEO of your company, and the person is an aggressive CEO, as in they are aggressively expanding the company. These are all very positive things. So I just want to make that point clear here. When I say Rob Banks is aggressive, I'm not saying aggressive in a negative way. When I say aggressive activism, I'm describing something, a form of communication, a form of activism that is more aggressive, but that doesn't inherently make it bad. It actually makes it good. My form of activism is aggressive, and I'm proud of that. That you know what I mean? It's not a negative. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's good.
And
go on, what were you saying, man?
I mean, I don't know the pinpoint definition of the word aggressive, but if anyone's aggressive, anyone that wears that label, I think Rob would happily admit that he's definitely aggressive. I mean, he straight up yells at people in their faces and like insults them and calls them like really bad words. So he's quite. I mean, when it comes to shaming, I mean that's about as aggressive as you can get with vegan and animal rights advocacy, I would say. Maybe being physically violent would be also aggressive. That'd be physically aggressive. I mean, it's definitely verbally aggressive, and it is what it is. I mean,
the definition here. I mean, there's many, but the one I would say would be marked by driving forceful energy or initiative. Like, for example, it says here, an aggressive salesman. That's a very positive thing. So, and also I want to touch on the what's that? Marked by forceful driving forceful energy or initiative.
No, you're saying aggressive salesman. That's a good thing. I kind of come from a different sales kind of school of thought. So I don't think
sure. Sure. I guess I meant in the sense of like, I don't know, if you had a I guess aggressive with the end consumer, no, but aggressively trying to get the sales, yes. Like if I have a salesperson that is like, okay, yeah, I am going to make my target, you know what, I'm going to blow my targets out of the water because I'm so aggressively going to do this, then that's great. But if they're going to take that aggression to the end consumer, no, I would say not in that sense. I get what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying. My bad. I should have been more clear. But again, with shaming, though, this is something, again, a lot of vegans are against it. They're against shaming as a form of communication, as a form of activism. And we're talking about fair shaming here. And I feel like a lot of people fall into the same category that I used to fall into, the same thought process that I used to fall into, which was if we shame fair wearers, then why don't we shame people who eat a burger, or people who consume animal products or use other animal products? And the way I kind of like recently kind of got past that and started to realize is that it's when the reason that I believe that people shame people wearing fur is because the strides that have been taken to put fur in a place where actually a lot of people don't support it already. It's kind of like fur in the USA, for example, fur, I believe it's a minority of people that actually would be supporting it versus a majority that would say, no, I wouldn't wear fur. I'd say there's a significant chunk of society that is against it. Would you agree with me that when it gets to a certain point, when it gets to a certain percentage of society that stands against something, that then it does make sense to start using the shaming as a form of activism? But I would say up until it reaches that tipping point, shaming would be largely ineffective. For example, if you shamed someone for eating meat, you just get laughed at. Like if you literally said to somebody, you're a scumbag because you eat meat, the same way you say you're a scumbag because you wear fur, you know, the surrounding public would just be laughing at you, probably like, what the fuck is wrong with you, you know? But if you shame someone for wearing fur, I would guess that the majority of people around you in a country like the USA would say, well, yeah, that fur is pretty disgusting. You shouldn't wear it. I guess most of those people are going to be on your side in that scenario, which is going to make it more effective, as opposed to shaming someone, like saying you're a scumbag because you're eating that burger. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm admittedly not an expert on the effects of shaming, although I've heard stuff from experts, and I do know from what I've heard that shame is a so the word shame refers to feeling bad about yourself, and so shaming someone is trying to make them feel bad about themselves, right? Yeah. And it's different from generating guilt. So guilt is feeling bad about an action that you've done or something like that. But shame is actually, feeling bad about yourself. And it's actually quite a non-productive feeling for generating behavior change in that individual. But beyond that, and that's what I've learned. But then beyond that, what I think is that when society, like what you're saying, when society, the majority agrees that wearing fur is horrible and evil, then public shaming can act as a deterrent for other people to not want to buy fur because they don't want to go through that. They don't want people. So if there's enough people that would do that would shame people, then when you go to the store, you're gonna be like, oh shit, do I want to get a Canada Goose jacket with fur on it? Because I don't want people yelling at me every time I go outside. So that could be a deterrent. And then, like, this is the thing. Like, I think it's very case by case. I don't want to say yes, it's good, or no, it's not, because I've had conversations with people wearing fur on the street where the person started crying on the street because I spoke to them. I'm not Rob Banks style. I'm the coaching, gentle approach, right? And I had this girl break down on the street crying and swore that she would never wear fur again. But she had never made the connection, and she didn't know what happened to coyotes for Canada Goose. Hell, I used to wear a Canada Goose jacket. I didn't know. It's just, yes, if you had rationally asked me, well, what do you think happens? Well, maybe I could have pieced it together, but it's just not a conscious decision that a lot of people make. So it's like when you have those conversations and you try to reach through to people, and let's suppose it's someone who just Cruella de Vil style from 101 Dalmatians that just is a mean, nasty person and doesn't care, then yeah, shaming I think might be kind of the last resort. But I'm not an expert in it. I don't really know. It's kind of my opinion as of right now, and maybe it could be changed.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've actually also tried to reach out to somebody wearing fur. I went out to somebody in Barcelona when I lived there and stopped this girl and I said, you know what this is? And I was quite polite. I said, you know what this is? I said, excuse me, first of all, do you speak English? She said, yeah. And it was a family as well. It was like mum, dad, daughter. And the daughter maybe was about, I don't know, 21, 22. And she was like,
were you speaking in Spanish or in English?
No, English. Yeah.
Okay.
They were
Spanish. Maybe that was the problem.
No. That would be a problem though. Yeah. No, they were English, American, I believe, actually. American tourists speaking English. So yeah, they stopped and I said, yeah, you speak English? Yeah, we do. He said, you know what this is? And she's like, yeah, it's fur. And I was like, all right, do you know what type of fur? She's like, yeah, I know, it's a coyote. And I was like, right, do you know what exactly the process is to get this? And she said, yeah. And I was like, so they skin them live and you know how it all works, they're like basically they're dogs, you know that, right? They're part of the dog family, you know all of this then, yeah? And she said, yeah. And I was like, and how do you feel about it? What do you think about it? And she just went, I don't care. Literally said to me, I don't care. And at that point, I didn't know Rob Banks at that point. I don't believe I don't think I even seen any real fur shaming videos. So I kind of froze up and I was like, wow, okay. I felt really bad about it. They left, obviously. I felt really bad because I was like, wow, I didn't know what to do next. And in hindsight, I figured I should have ended that with a shame. I should have shamed her. I should have literally done a Rob Banks at that moment and said, well, you know, you're a scumbag then. You're an animal abusing piece of shit. And then they would have walked away, but at least it would have left a lasting impression of that one day they had in Barcelona where that person called her a scumbag. You know what I mean? Whereas what I felt I left them with some kind of lasting impression because obviously someone stopped them, and that's enough for most people. To be stopped in the street and questioned about what you have on your body, that's pretty intense for most people. But if I felt really bad because I was like, wow, if I could have followed up with something way more intense. And that was back in the days where, I don't know, I would have been more nervous about this kind of thing. But yeah, so it didn't bring her to tears with a beautiful, conversation. But yeah, it was that's just giving an example of a time where I've gone out and tried and done that and it kind of went badly. And I kind of learned a lesson though, really. I learned a lesson that I feel like that I should have maybe just gone straight in for the shame, not even asked the questions, and just been like, just literally straight up said, you're wearing a dead coyote on your shoulders. That's sick. That's disgusting. You should take that off right now. You should take it back to the store, or you should get rid of that and don't wear it, and be prepared for people to attack you for wearing that. I should have really just gone in kind of like Rob does. I feel like that would have just dealt with it in a better way. And I guess the point I'm trying to get to here is that I am definitely supportive of this form of communication, but many vegans are not. And I believe they're not supportive of it because they just don't, either they don't understand the point. They don't understand that it can work and it is necessary especially for fair, because as we said, in most of the countries where people are doing this kind of activism, fair has a big stigma around it. So it is a good thing to shame because it will just increase the stigma even more. People will not want to buy it, like you said. And also, I guess we need to kind of deal with this as well. Most of the vegans that come up on my pages with this kind of crap, and also Rob's pages, they're repeating the similar mantra, be like Ed, right? It's like they've all watched an Ed video, or even some of them, I guess, have seen your videos or watched one of your workshops, and they have drilled it into their head that there is only one way to communicate. There's only one way. And it is the Earthling Ed, open, patient, peaceful, getting the point across, but in a constructive, productive, we're working together as a team kind of way. And so many people in this community have it in their head that it's either the Ed way or the Alex way, if you want to, whatever you want to call it. I know your ways are not identical, but you get my point. It's either that way or it's no way. And if you are too aggressive in their eyes, then you need to, you're bad. You need to stop. You need to stop right now. And this is the main drive as to why we're, so what can we do about that? How can we open people's minds to the idea that, not to the idea, to the fact that we can't all be, and we shouldn't be Ed. How do we get through to people, man?
Before I answer that question, can you go back to that other screen view where we were like,
yeah. Oh, you want the big thing?
Yeah, because then you're bigger. I can see. Yeah, I can actually see you a lot better.
So hold up, I'll do a quick little to the viewers. If you like this view better, then actually, if you don't like this view, please tell us in the chat. Like if you don't like it, so if you say no, go back to the other view, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we want; it's what they want. So yeah, please let us know. And secondly, I forgot to mention at the beginning, but if you have any questions for myself or Alex, or any comments or anything you want us to discuss or put on the screen right now, or almost exactly at the moment you send it, you have to use the super chat, because we're not really going to check the chat during the main conversation. So use the super chat because you contribute to the stream, you support me, and you'll get whatever topic, comment, or whatever you want to put up on the screen. And as a disclaimer, remember, you're only going to get that up on the screen if it's something that's relevant, and if it's something that isn't, you being shitty. And I don't expect anyone would waste their money doing anything like that. You never have before. But just remember, keep it relevant, keep it on topic. We're talking about obviously angry versus calm vegans. Keep it linked to that if you can. Use the super chat button. It's right there in the chat, and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about if you do that. Cool. They say someone's just said, I like Alex in large view, but shrink your side back down, David. That's nice.
Wow.
I love that. I'm getting slammed on my own stream. How about you just, go and watch some Alex videos then, bro? You don't need to watch our stream.
That was funny. Is that anyone that we know? Is that anyone I know?
I don't know. It's called Race Lever. I don't know the name.
That's
I mean,
fine.
I think I've seen them on my channel before, but I don't know their real name.
Maybe they've earned the right to troll you then if they've been on
I mean,
other streams of yours.
I don't mind this kind of troll. This kind of troll's funny, and as long as it's not nasty trolling, this is fine. You can insult my. You could actually, you're not really insulting my appearance.
You know what the problem is? Actually, you know what the problem is?
What's
it's
that?
that you have this like super HD camera on you that shows every like little line, and I have this like just the laptop camera, which like makes me look 10 years younger.
You look
so
like you've got
maybe
makeup
that's
on,
what it
man.
is.
Totally, you look like you got a makeup.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
right there.
I have my makeup
Nice.
team. Oh shit! I almost pulled my microphone out. Yeah, I have my makeup team. By the way, if you guys see me continuously scratching here, I think I just got bit by a mosquito. And it's like right before the stream started, and it's driving me nuts. So that's why I keep scratching my neck here. Okay, let's go back to the topic here. And I wanted to share something with you. And let me know what you think about this, because this is one thing that. So the coaching approach that I've been teaching for the last few years with Avo, it's not easy. It's not the way we normally communicate. It's not the way that we want to communicate normally either, right? So in your example, in the example that you gave me, you said that you went up to the girl and the first question you asked her was something about like, I don't know, it was like about the fur. Like, do you know what that is, or do you know where it comes from, or something like that, right? Like your first topic of conversation was the fur, and I never do that. And the reason why I never do that is because what I've learned through the last, 20 years is that before you get down to business, like, and you want to talk about your business, you want to talk about animal rights, you want to talk about the fur. And this is a point of debate between vegans. And I've seen a lot of people online. I haven't made any like big public statements about it or comments on it, but I'll do it now. One thing that I think a lot of people misrepresent is the idea that like there are vegans out there, I would be one of them, that feel like they want to be liked by other people. So they feel the need to like pander or to be too soft or to be like not hard enough on them because my ego cares about if that person likes me or not. And I'll say this right now, that for those of us who use coaching techniques, it has nothing to do with ego. Like, I don't actually care if some random stranger that I'm talking to on the street about fur likes me or not, because I know that just as an animal rights activist, you're going to be disliked by a lot of people, and that's okay. That's not a problem for me. The reason why I don't start a fur conversation about like, hey, do you know where that's from, that fur or that animal, is because I know that people are going to get defensive about it right away. I know that they've seen a video of Rob Banks shaming Kelly Rowlands on TMZ, and now they're like, oh shit, here comes someone, and right away they have their gloves up, right? So I'll give you an example of how I approached this guy. I think I was in Germany at the time, and we were standing at a bus stop, and he walks up while I was waiting for the bus, wearing a Canada Goose parka with the fur, right? So I turned to him and I'm like, hey man, Canada Goose, cool man, I'm Canadian, I'm from Canada, and like gave him a fist bump right away, you know? So right away I'm like, hey man, like there's some connection that we have, right? You're wearing Canada Goose and I'm from Canada. And I'm like, yeah, man, pretty warm jacket, isn't it? He's like, yeah. I go, actually, I used to have like a really nice Canada Goose jacket a few years ago, but I stopped wearing it. Actually, have you heard why so many Canadians like are stopping, like why they really hate Canada Goose? And he's like, no. And all of a sudden, it starts generating interest in me. He's like, no, I don't know why Canadians are starting to hate this Canadian brand. And the start to the conversation was super soft. And I felt like I was able to keep his defenses low. So when I started talking about all the horrible things that happened, it wasn't even a direct attack on him. I wasn't asking him the conversation wasn't on him. It was on Canadians against Canada Goose. So then he had to make a choice. Well, am I going to side with these Canadians who are going against this brand? And I explained to him how cruel it is and why so many people are starting to ditch Canada Goose. Or is he going to side with the company who's abusing animals? Mm-hmm. And those sorts of approaches, or for example, the girl who started crying on the street, I didn't start talking about a Canada Goose jacket. I started talking about her dog that she was walking, and I built rapport with like the dog that I was walking, and like, you know, so it's like you start off building this rapport, and it's not because I care if she likes me or not. It's all about the fact that if they feel safe in this conversation, if they don't view me as a threat, and this goes down to like our primitive brain, if I'm not a threat to them, they'll be much more open-minded and they'll think about this much more logically and rationally. If they're defensive, if their ego gets triggered, all of a sudden they're in defense mode, and that's where. And by the way, like no matter what you do, sometimes people will get defensive. Like you can't really help that. Yeah. But you can try and increase your percentages by starting off these conversations not in attack mode. And even though you're not in attack mode, if like perception's reality, right? So if they believe, hey, oh, this guy, here comes this guy to attack me about my fur, it's usually not going to be terribly productive unless you have like a super low ego person where like nothing triggers them. And then they can remain open, and then you can kind of like, you know, be really harsh with them, Gary Yourofsky style. And we can even go into Gary if you want, because you know, Gary was a huge influence when I went vegan. And we can talk about his style and why his style is so effective, in my opinion, and when it can be effective. So anyway, that's kind of a maybe a little segue if you want into Gary land.
It's good, and I think in a scenario like you've described, where you would be, I don't know, in a queue for a bus, or you know, in a space, I suppose, where you are standing still and they're standing still, and you are alone and they are alone, or they are not alone, you're alone, whatever. The what you've just kind of discussed there, it makes sense to approach in a more like that way. I would say absolutely, I would agree, and that's kind of in that scenario. If I was going to do it, it's kind of, I would take more of an approach that would be more open and relaxed and kind of try to do it that way. And I think for anyone watching who's wondering, is that a good thing to do? And I think in that scenario, I'd absolutely agree. Where I think that may not be, let's say, as fruitful or as or would work as well, or where other things could work better, would be in the situation where someone like Rob Banks is out on the street with a team filming, with a megaphone, where they're doing an event or something like that. And in those situations, it's like, okay, why are we doing this? Do we want to change this one individual that was wearing fur here, whilst we've got this team? Or do we want to try to create something where we trigger their defenses and they act like an idiot on camera, and we put this whole reaction next to footage from the fur industry? And then we got to ask which one of these two scenarios is gonna do more work, right? Which one's going to reach more people? We both know that the second one is going to reach more people. But then that's in the situation where you have a team that's ready to film. You're fired up. You know what I mean? You're doing something, and it makes sense to do this. But you at a bus stop with some person, it's probably not going to work the same as if you did it in a scenario where you had that going on. Like, for example, if you just literally shouted at that guy, started chanting at him, everyone's going to look at you like you're an idiot. That's probably going to happen. They're going to think you're crazy. Even if you have a great message, you're going to look bad, because people are going to be like, who the hell's this crazy person, started shouting at somebody randomly and you know, just stood still on the side of the road. It's going to be like, what? So it's there's nuance is what I'm trying to say. And this is why I wish we saw more of, that people that people seem to think there is just one way, as I said, and it's you know, your way, or it's Gary's way, or it's Ed's way, or this is one way, and it's just not true. It's entirely dependent on the scenario, the situation, and the goals of what you're trying to achieve. And they also seem to think, this is another common, we'll get into this for now actually, the different approaches on, in face-to-face environments. I feel like we kind of covered that now, but like to conclude, I would say that depending on your goal, if your goal is to reach as many people as possible, chances are you're probably going to want a bit more of a combative conversation, because a beautiful conversation that goes nice and slow and patiently, and it's just very slow, it's great for the individual you're talking to, not so great for getting people to watch your content and watch it all the way through to the end, because honestly, it can be kind of boring. With some of your videos, they're not boring because you kept it entertaining with different cuts and different, you know, you ask a few funny questions, so it keeps it light. But you know, it's you can't deny that the videos that take off, the ones that will most likely get through to a lot more people and even get shared from a non-vegan to another non-vegan, would be the ones where it's like shocking, like someone said something that's so, it's been
Oh.
so intense and like
Yeah.
something's going on and violent, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we as humans, we love drama, and conflict is interesting to people. So even when you look at my videos and my YouTube channel, which I've neglected quite a lot recently, but the conversations are as coaching as I can get, but the titles, the what's it called? What do you call them?
The thumbnails and titles, yeah.
Yeah. The thumbnails I'm always trying to generate some conflict so that especially non-vegans want to watch it, right? So I'm trying to come up with like catchy titles, that makes them want to watch. And I don't know, man. It's impossible for me to know the impact of those conversations with people because we're not able to track, link clicks and that sort of thing just yet, but soon we will. So that might help. But I don't know. Yeah, and I think to wrap this point up, like even myself, I don't even know, less than 1% of my conversations have ever been recorded. A tiny fraction of them. So it's like most of the time, you, myself, and anyone watching this are not going to have a team of people around with a nice camera, good audio, and like uploading it to YouTube. So I think that for the most part, I think people are curious about what approach works well for them in conversations with friends, family, coworkers, random people they might run into in a cafe, an Uber driver, stuff like that. And obviously, I'm a big believer in the coaching approach. But
absolutely, yeah, I would totally agree with you. Like this, if anyone's, if that's what you're here for today, if anyone's watching and you're thinking, okay, I just want to know how to talk to people in any situation, practically any situation, and not have it end up in a fight where someone's threatening me and telling me to fuck off, then I would recommend going to Alex's website, amazingveganoutreach.com, I believe, or go to his YouTube and watch some of his tutorials and stuff. Then that's the way. I honestly couldn't give you any better place to go and get that information. But if that's what you're here for, then that's what I'd say. What I really want to delve into now, though, is although what Alex is teaching and what you stand by, the coaching approach and the working together approach, I absolutely stand by it. I stand by it for almost every scenario where I'm in a face-to-face environment without a camera on me. With a camera on me, the goal changes, and this is what happens with Joey. I believe this is what happens with most of the activists, like Rob Banks, for example. I wish we could ask him, but I would go ahead and put money on the fact that Rob Banks, when he's doing this activism, is the first shaming and the that when the cameras are on. Of course, he steps it up because he knows if he steps it up, it gets on TMZ, it gets on TV, it gets in the papers, and that's his goal. His goal is to get the message as far as possible, but there will be moments where that's not his goal, where his goal will be, all right, maybe he's on a bus, like you said, he's about to get on a bus and there's some person there wearing fur, and maybe he would take a different approach. Maybe he would actually talk to them in a calm way and explain to them, hey, look, dude, this isn't cool. Here's a leaflet. Like, you should really not wear that. Maybe that's what he does. I would go ahead and assume that's what he does. And also maybe with family and friends, maybe he takes a much more calm and open approach when the situation is different. So now we're going to get into the social media side of things, and we can talk about myself as an example of this. In that my Reels videos, for example, my Instagram Reels videos, they're 15 seconds, maximum 30-second videos, but mostly somewhere in between, so like 20 to 30-second videos. So what I do, I take the goal-based approach. I want this message to get to as many people as possible. Will this video get to as many people as possible if I say something like, hey guys, hey, welcome, I'm David, and I believe that you should be a vegan because animals are awesome and you should respect them. So lots of love, bye. No, it's not going to fucking go anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. 30 seconds of that is going to sit on my page with maybe 1,000 views from vegans who don't share it, because why the fuck would they share that? Why would anyone share that? It's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing for, to say that that's how we defend the animals. It's embarrassing, right? So my reels are to the point. They're direct. Oftentimes they're insulting. I tell people you're full of shit. I say like, don't be a piece of shit. I say stuff like, don't be an asshole. I say these things because this is what, firstly, it's important to note that this is what vegans want to say, but don't dare to say. There are so many vegans who would love to say that shit, but they know if they do it, they're going to get attacked by their family and friends, and people are going to unfollow them, and they don't want to do it. But if I do it, they can share it, and people might be upset with them, but they say, well, well, I didn't say it. This David Rams guy said it. Don't attack me. I'm just sharing a post that I found inspiring. You see the point? So, and that will get to reach more and more people. It's going to reach way more non-vegans than the first version is going to reach. So I feel like we need to get into a conversation now as between what real life and online, and the differences in goals, and therefore the differences in approaches. And I'd ask you, to get your take on this then. What's there? Some noise back here. What's that noise? Jesus, okay, never mind. What is your take on what I've just said, about this kind of, I call it cutting through the bullshit. I make content that I aim to cut through the shit. And I believe to cut through the shit, you've got to get to the point and you've got to say something that's going to make people go, and that's what I aim to do, especially with Reels, because it's only 30 seconds. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you said something maybe indirectly, but it's 100% what I believe. Like whenever anybody is trying to figure out what's the best approach, the way that we should start that conversation, whether it's an internal dialogue or it's a conversation between people, is given this scenario, whatever the scenario is, what's the intended outcome? What do you want to happen from this, right? So that's why different forms of activism exist, because the end goals are different. And so there's not one right approach. That's I think really silly to think that there's one right approach. So David, if you want this video to reach a lot of people, to generate some conflict, to generate conversation in the comments, you want to spark, you want to kind of leave an impression on people. Yeah, you have to be more controversial. Actually, we had this talk. I hope you don't mind me saying this. We had this talk when you were kind of talking about the future of your YouTube channel, and I was kind of giving you the advice that okay, so this is funny, right? Coming from the guy who's all about being soft, and I'm about being hard on the problem but soft on the people. I was telling you you need to be harder on people. You need to be more controversial, because this medium is different than a one-on-one conversation. So I agree with you 100%. That's why my thumbnails are a little clickbaity. My titles are a little clickbaity, because you need to get that conflict. People want to see conflict. I don't know. It is what it is. So totally. I don't mind it. And then I'll bet you, the same way that you said that you doubt that Rob Banks is that aggressive if he actually has some time one-on-one with someone. I know that you're not that way either. If you sit down with someone, again, you're at a cafe and you strike up a conversation with the person next to you, you're not going to be like, you're a fucking asshole. Yeah. You're going to have that coaching conversation with them. So it's just about identifying what the intended goal is for that action, and then finding the best way to do that. And I think that there are best ways, or more effective and less effective ways based on the goal. Yeah. I wouldn't be teaching what I'm teaching for as long as I've been teaching it if I thought it wasn't highly effective. And I've been fortunate enough to be I did what's it called, a course, a 2-day course, and then 4 days later on Kingian nonviolence, learning all about disruptions and nonviolent direct action and how effective that is. So yeah. It's very different than a coaching approach. It's almost the opposite, but there's definitely benefits. And yeah, I don't know. I'm curious, does anyone have questions in the comments about these different approaches? And is everything that we're saying just making sense? And are people oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense? Or are they no, you're an idiot and you're wrong?
There you go. Yeah, you can answer that in the comments. We'll take a little look at them. But as I mentioned earlier, if you actually really, really want to get something up on the screen, like a topic or a question, use the super chat function, please. About social media, sticking to that for a second, I guess let's fill in a gap here, a knowledge gap, because I don't know if everyone here knows how it works. And I don't mean how to post something or how to like a comment. I mean, literally how the algorithms work, how does your content even get out there? Why would controversy or conflict create videos that would go viral? Why does it make sense? So let me explain each platform real quickly, just to give you an idea of why this is so important. So for YouTube, we're on YouTube right now. So YouTube, doesn't try to find viewers for your video. YouTube tries to find videos for the viewer. So when you log into YouTube and you open your YouTube, YouTube has already run some tests on you to figure out what it thinks you're going to click on and watch. So YouTube's constantly trying to find videos that it thinks you're going to like. It's tailored to you. That's how YouTube works. YouTube responds really well to likes, comments, saves, people when you save something to a playlist, and shares, all of the usual good stuff. But the main things that will get a video to go viral will be if people click it. So how many people click it versus how many people see it. It's called a click-through rate. So basically, if 100 people see it and only one clicks it, that's not very good. If 100 people see it and 50 of them click it, that's really, really good. Then you have the watch time. So how much of the video did they watch? If they watched 5% of it, it's not going to grow. It's not going to get big. It's not going to happen. Not many people will see it. If they watched 90% of it and the click-through rate is really high, that video is going to go viral. It's going to go viral because they see that people are watching it, and they're not just watching it, they're watching it for a lot longer than other videos, so it'll go viral. So how do you get people to click your video and then watch it all the way through? Well, you've got to make it entertaining. And if you're talking about veganism, do you think that a video about veganism that's really friendly and informative is going to get as many people watching it and for as long a time as compared to a video that has more conflict and drama? Of course, it's not. And you might be saying to me now, and which a few people might be thinking this, who are kind of not following me on this. Well, Ed gets thousands and hundreds of thousands of views on his videos, and his videos are very nice and, you know, not controversial, and it's all good. That's because Ed has, what, 250,000 subscribers? So he's already achieved his subscribers, okay? So basically, when he started out, he was doing that kind of video. He was challenging people in the street. He was having conflictive arguments and discussions with people, which created drama. That's how Ed got huge. It wasn't from making informative videos. It was from his outreach. The same as Joey.
And vegans and non-vegans. This is another thing. Like vegans and non-vegans were clicking on those videos, right? Like they wanted to see these conversations. It was a hot topic. It still is. But he's getting click-throughs through like a broad audience.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, even those videos that Ed was putting out, they were quite long, right? And you know, a lot of people, like for me, for example, I very, very rarely watch one all the way through. So even somebody who's actually really interested in this won't watch the video all the way through. So my point is, there's a difference in tactics depending on how many subscribers and followers you have as well. So if I had 250,000 subscribers, chances are I would probably do a more balanced variety of videos. Some would be nice and informative. I might even do some things on, like, I don't know, lifestyle related stuff. But as I know that stuff isn't gonna create the awareness that I need to create, it's not going to get to enough people, I won't do it because there's no point. It's nice and it's good and it's nice for the subscribers, but look, guys, like I don't want to hurt your feelings here, but my end goal of my work is not to make you guys feel good. It's to get through to non-vegans as well, and to get you guys to share the videos. And you're not going to share the videos if they're all nice and fluffy, because it's boring, and you know it's boring, and it might be nice for you, but it's not going to interest anyone who's not vegan. So the videos need to be entertaining and dramatic, and there needs to be conflict. There needs to be something going on to get them out there and get them to more people. So the approach and the goal, they have to match, all right? And this is how social media works. It pretty much works on Instagram the same way. It works on Facebook the same way. It's more or less the same way, that you need to get engagement to get awareness. And comparing, so let's say, smaller accounts like mine, or you know, for example, comparing Rob Banks's approach to Ed's approach and saying that Ed's is better because, I don't know, whatever, you feel it's better, he gets more views, he gets more of this, more of that. You're comparing apples and oranges, because Ed has such a massive, monstrous, engaged following that he could post practically anything and it will be successful. Okay, so if you're talking about purely about strategy, you know, you have to consider, we have to consider what's going to reach the most people with what we have already, not start trying to copy somebody who's already got like 250,000 subscribers and so can afford to try out new things and not have to be so dramatic all the time, because people are going to watch it regardless. if that makes sense. Does that all made sense? I'm rambling. I feel like I'm losing Alex. Am I making
David
sense
Rambles.
to you? Am I making
There's
sense
a
to the
there's a new YouTube name for you, David
Am I
Rambles.
making sense to the guys in the comments? Let's just check that, because I know I've lost you. You glazed over about 10 minutes ago. But
You know what? Do you know why? Because I've never used this before. This is the
Okay.
first time I'm using StreamYard. So I looked over to the right and I see private chat and comments. I'm like, oh shoot, I can actually see the comments.
oh, you
Or-
can see them there.
yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I can see comments. There's a lot. I mean, I haven't looked at all of them, but yeah, I see some some funny comments in there.
Let's segue actually. Okay, we've talked about Ed and Rob a lot. We're an hour in, so let's now segue, because I just said that, you know, if we're talking about social media activism, which is pretty much where we're focusing here, like we know that numbers, it's all about you could getting the content in front of people, right? That's what, if you don't get it in front of people, it doesn't matter how good your message is. It doesn't matter even what you're saying. If no one watches it, it's pointless, right? You need to get it in front of people. But check this out. The most successful vegan content creators, right? Or you could call them plant-based content creators if you want to be technical, but the ones that are talking about veganism, plant-based food, etc., as a topic, let's say, it's food as a topic or lifestyle as a topic, by far the most successful, the ones reaching the most people, it's not Ed, it's not Joey, it's not James, it's not Gary, it's not Rob. It's all of them combined don't reach anywhere near as many people as the plant-based lifestyle accounts, or call them vegan lifestyle accounts. They don't even reach probably 10% of the people that those accounts reach, right? So let's talk about that. What about that approach? And if our end goal is awareness, or if our end goal is to get this content in front of people, I mean, they're smashing it. They are by far the most successful accounts out there, the most successful, not activists, but in terms of spreading a message that has plant-based food, or that it's healthy, or that, you know, vegan recipes. They are like by far smashing it in that sense. So how do we weigh this up, right? Because from time to time they'll talk about the morals and the ethics as well. They're not just talking about recipes. They do talk about it from time to time, but they're reaching literally millions of people on a regular basis. So what do you think about that as an approach in comparison to, you know, like us, like who are doing a more activist, ethics focused approach versus those who do a more lifestyle focused approach? What are your thoughts on that?
I think they complement each other. Like, I would never say that like we should ever wish that a channel with millions of subscribers who are learning how to eat delicious plant-based foods should disappear, or, you know, like they complement each other, and there is a need for channels and websites and resources that support people who decide that they want to be vegan, right? So I think it's great that they exist. You know, I can't. Well, okay. So here's something that I had to go through, and maybe this helps people go through it. It's a lot easier for people to come to the conclusion that eating animals is wrong and they no longer want to participate in it when, one, they know that it's not going to negatively affect them. So like your health, for example, if someone genuinely believes that they will get sick and die, and they believe that, it's going to be really hard for them to conclude that they should stop eating animals. So that's one tricky thing. But then the other one is like, people don't want to suffer. They don't want life to be boring and their meals to be dull and shitty. So when people realize that as well, that you can have, like, David, you know this, we don't sacrifice anything by being vegan, right? Like, no, I would honestly say this to people, like, I genuinely enjoy my food more now than before I was vegan. It opens your mind to so many different types of foods and so many beautiful like flavors and textures that I enjoy food more. But people need to understand that in a way, because at the end of the day, we are a little bit selfish, and we want to make sure that we're healthy. We want to make sure that we can still enjoy things that we enjoy. And when people realize that, it becomes so much easier for them to be like, yeah, you know, this is pretty messed up, because I can make all these dishes that Bosch just, you know, taught me to do, and why the hell am I going to go and cook a steak now? You know, so sure. I think they complement each other, and I think it's good. I think you need content from all around. And if there were no lifestyle, no recipes out there, like, how many times have you helped someone realize, like, if you don't know what to make, go on Google and search for it, right? Well, these are people that are putting that content out there, so it's necessary as well.
Definitely. I see a few people straight away when I mentioned that. I saw like a few hate comments popped up straight away saying that these people these people aren't real vegans. These people, they damage the movement when they start eating meat and stuff like that. I'm not referring to just any old person here. I'm not referring to those people who, don't care about animals here. I'm referring to there are some that are very, very well known who have constantly spoke about ethics. I mean, you've got, not constantly, sorry, but they've made it clear that they're vegan for the animals. It's just they don't talk about it all the time. And that's, as someone else already said as well, that's partly the reason that their pages do explode, because people, well, they don't like feeling guilty. And if they can just follow a channel and follow the recipes without, being guilt tripped, it's not like they're being guilt tripped, obviously we know, but they get it in their head that they are being guilt tripped, even though the message is just like, don't abuse animals. But for example, like we've got Nimai Delgado would be an example of a huge influencer. I would say he's pretty big. I mean, on Instagram anyway, he's pretty big. He's a fitness influencer. There's Tori Washington is another fitness influencer. These guys are they're pretty big. They're not the biggest, but they're pretty big, and they're both ethical vegans. It's just they don't talk about veganism. They talk about the plant-based diet. They talk about their health. They're bodybuilders. For example, there's Nimai's ex-girlfriend, Bianca Taylor, who also has a pretty big account. She's like a model and a fitness influencer. Again, doesn't really talk about the ethics that much, but she has a huge following, and she's, I guess, leading in that way. Someone's just commented, Cheap Lazy Vegan, who's another ethical vegan who does plant-based food, lifestyle stuff. A huge account, absolutely monster YouTube account. I can't remember how many subs, but I think, let me check actually. Let's get how many subs Cheap Lazy Vegan has.
I never heard of that. I thought that was like an insult to someone. Cheap Lazy Vegan.
708,000 subs.
Jeez, wow.
Okay, and it's pretty much like she's just doing lifestyle stuff, but she is an ethical vegan, right? I mean, she's posting really regularly. Her views are averaging 20,000 views a video, and she's posting multiple videos a week. Like, we're talking like she's reaching a significant amount of people, but of course, she's not necessarily focusing on ethics, and that's. A lot of us get upset about that, including me. I've been known to say it as well. Like, I'm guilty of this. Like, well, why don't they say something about ethics? Imagine the impact they could have. But then on the flip side, they wouldn't be reaching 20,000 people on each video and reaching so many people so regularly if they were talking about it. So it's difficult to say what's the best thing to do here, because we have we have activists who talk about ethics in every video, and as you said, I believe that we do need people that talk about the other side for when somebody does say, okay, where do I find vegan recipes? Where do I find vegan lifestyle stuff? Then you can send them here. When they Google it, this is what they're going to come up with. This is what they're going to find. So it's got to be both. But I understand the criticism too that people would give as well. But if these people didn't exist, as you said, we'd have a gap. We'd have a huge gap, wouldn't we, of where do we send people then? Who's going to inspire them? Who's going to influence them? Because that's what these people do, don't they? They're influencers.
Yeah, I think I also want to say that it's so much easier to be plant-based. Like, people, as much as they like watching conflict, most people are usually pretty conflict averse themselves. Like, it's fun to watch other people going at it, but you don't want to be necessarily attracting negative attention to yourself. And so I think that is the biggest hurdle for the animal rights movement. Like, there's lots of vegans out there, but the great majority of them are silent. Like, they don't want to dive into the ethics, even if that's, the reason why it's the only reason why you're vegan, otherwise you're plant-based. But it's almost like people want to avoid that. And I remember, like, going back to my journey, whatever that is.
Oh man, I didn't realize I had John Venus on here. Go on, man.
I don't know of a better word. My path.
Okay.
I went vegan. And I was vegan for like 3 years. And of course I would talk about it because I'm a pretty outspoken person. I like debating, and so yeah, we definitely go at it with friends, family, that sort of thing. But I was never into like activism. And I remember the thought of going to a slaughterhouse was really kind of off-putting, not just because what I knew I was going to see there, but also like being a visible opponent to to this industry, and I'd never done activism in my life before, so it was pretty intimidating. And I equate my becoming an activist with going vegan. Like, it was that big of a leap for me because I'd never been active. Maybe other people had experiences being active in other things. I didn't. So it was a pretty big thing. And like, it's like the same way that you kind of almost develop a different persona amongst your friends and family for being vegan. Like, activism is the next level. Like, I remember my mom being like, "Oh no, really now? Like, now this? Like, first you go vegan, and now you're going to slaughterhouses, and now you're putting videos of this online." And like, it was, to her, it was like, Jesus, like, how weird can you be? You know? And so I think a lot of people struggle with it already. Like, it's hard enough for them to be weird by being vegan. So they prefer to the plant-based label because you get less tension, you get less people attacking you, because like, nobody cares if you're on the Atkins diet, right? Or very few people are going to give a shit if you went paleo. No. Like, good for you, who cares? But if you say you went vegan and it's for the animals, you're going to get an earful, right? You're going to get people just defending themselves and starting conflict with you. And I think a lot of people don't want that. So it's too bad. But so my question to the chat, or to you, or to anyone, is like, and this is one of the big missions of why we started We the Free. It's like, how do we build this activist community? Like, how do we make being an activist cool or inviting? Because I know people are going to say, well, they should just do it. They should just do it because it's the right thing to do. But humans are weak and we're scared. And I think a lot of people are not doing that. They're not standing up because they're afraid. So, and they need the support. Like, look how much easier it is to be an activist when you're surrounded by activists, when you have a little activist family, when you can talk about things after the fact and, you know, yell or scream or cry about it with them. Imagine some random person in some small town has no vegan friends even, and we're like, why aren't you like yelling at people about fur? Like, they're probably already taking so much shit for that, you know, and they don't have the support network. So anyway.
Totally. I think it's less of a question of, in this sense, it's less of a question of what works more, and it's more of a question of like who you are as an individual, and what I think we need to also consider, like, what are people good at or what are people bad at. Now, like, although we want everyone to be an activist, ideally everybody would get out there on the street and you know, outreach or do disruptions or whatever, like do something physical like that. But it's not going to be for everyone. It's just not. Like, somebody can come to your workshop and they could do all the training. They could do it 10 times, right? Your workshop, your 2-day trainings, where you give them the support, you introduce them to We the Free, you introduce them to people who are going to really help. And they still just can't do it. They just, it's not them. They feel uncomfortable every time they do it. They're not good at it because they don't feel like they can do it. They're just not that kind of person, right? This is going to happen to a lot of people. And if those individuals want to go out and start a bloody lifestyle influencer channel where they don't talk about ethics at all, and they only talk about the food, and they show and display all the different ways that you can eat, and this plant-based food, and how, you know, you can do it cheap and you can make it tasty and you can do all this great stuff, then I don't believe in that scenario that any vegans should be coming after them and telling them, like, hey, you know, calling them names or saying they're not a real vegan because they don't talk about the activism and talk about the animals, and they don't talk about it's just, I find it to be really sad that vegans would do that, because, you know, because somebody takes a different angle, a different approach. It is a really sad thing. And, you know, putting aside what's effective and what's not effective, we also have to think about what people are better at and worse at. And some people aren't good at talking. Some people aren't good at taking, I don't know, some people can't handle the stress, like you said, of having people come after them. Some people are very, I don't want to use the word weak because that's not what I'm getting at here, but they're just not as ready for that, whether they've got issues that they can't take it, or they're too self-conscious, and that's something that you can work on, fine, but some people have got it to a level that they can't work on it. Like, it's how they've always been, and they struggle being self-conscious, you know?
I think some people think, like, take any plant-based influencer, it's like, there's two options. They're either a plant-based influencer with 1 million subscribers, or they're a vegan animal rights Gary Yourofsky with 1 million subscribers, right? And it's like, those aren't the two only options. There's a third option, which is they don't do anything, right? And maybe they're not capable of doing the animal rights activism, but they're doing the plant-based stuff, which is, I would love it if, like, every, you know, plant-based influencer was, talking about animal rights as eloquently as people like Ed, as eloquently as people like Alex, Cosmic Skeptic.
Absolutely.
When I hear him talk, I'm like, holy moly, this like young kid basically is just like a genius. And the way he the way he articulates things is like, I don't know, it's really, really cool to hear him talk. Or another guy that I really love hearing him speak about animal rights is Philip Wallen. Just like his, So anyway, actually, maybe if we can segue a little bit, if you're okay with it, because I want to talk about Gary Yourofsky a little bit, because
go for it.
There's definitely a divide. People like, some people love Gary, some people hate Gary, some people are anyway. And I said that Gary, it was very influential. Like when I first started getting into veganism, like his speech was just like the punch in the face that I really kind of wanted and needed. And I think there's a lot of debate on like, should we all be Gary Yourofskys? The same way that like, should we all be Earthling Eds? And I think what a lot of people who have this very black and white view of activism, what they fail to realize is that not everybody, and very few people, if any, I mean, I've never met anyone like Gary Yourofsky in this movement, who's, who's as charismatic as he is, who, sure, he's direct and no bullshit and to the point, and kind of like, you almost feel like he's scolding you, like he's your dad, kind of telling you, you're doing something wrong here. But at the same time, I rewatched his speech because of how good it is. I just kind of wanted to analyze it for myself and see why it's so good. And what I realized is that he subtly spends time building rapport with his audience. So he starts off his speech much softer, and he lets people know like why he's talking. It's not an attack on them. He cracks some really good jokes. He's funny. He makes the room laugh. And so when you start liking and specifically respecting him, because what you end up doing very early on, because of his persona, his character, his charisma, you just respect this guy. Like whatever he said, you're going to listen to it, and he just commands that room. He has that power within him, which most of us, myself included, don't have. We can't command a room and give a speech that powerfully. So we shouldn't all strive to be characters that we're not. Like there's not, maybe there's never going to be another Gary Yourofsky. There's not going to be another Earthling Ed. Like everyone needs to figure out what they want to do, what their goal is in this one-on-one conversation, in their YouTube video. Learn from people that have done it, that have expertise, that are experts. Read some books. There's lots of people not related to veganism on how to influence and how to motivate people, how to generate good social media content. Like I'm so not an expert in that, but if you want to do that, then learn about it. Like you're talking about all the algorithms and all that stuff. You learn that, and so you tailor your content to be successful in that. And I think we could all do better by just learning more about what we're talking about and purporting to know about, and to say this is the best way, this is not the best way. And this is why, by the way, I got to keep plugging this, because I'm coming from a sales background. People talk about this all the time. Like, what's the best sales techniques? Who's a better salesperson? And like, there's no argument. This is the thing. There's never any arguments on sales teams who's the best salesperson and what the best approach is, at least for that person, because the numbers don't lie. So whoever has the most sales this quarter or this year, clearly people can learn from them. And it's not necessarily that you'd have the same approach, because again, your personalities might be different, but they're clearly doing some things right. And that's why when we start having our own personal data, and we can start seeing, like when I post, by the way, this will give you the ability to track your effectiveness with online content as well as in-person conversations. So David, you post a video, and I mean, you're already doing this, I assume, with Vegan Bootcamp now. You can see that aspect. Sure. With our other site that we're going to be launching, you'll be able to track every single link click that someone has done and see what impact your videos have, what impact your conversations have. And then you can start playing around with different approaches. Like if you realize that, like myself, let's say I've been a big fan of the coaching approach. Let's say I do that for 3 months, and not one person that I talk to at an event goes and watches a documentary, signs up for Vegan Bootcamp. I'm going to be like, oh shit. Like, I'm going to have to send out a newsletter to all the AVO attendees and be like, yeah, can't forget everything I said.
Forget
but at least you can try
everything.
different approaches. That would suck so bad.
This
But
is- this
but
is-
it's better
yeah.
to know that than to continue
Yeah.
doing things that might not work, right? So
You've got
I'm
a great
excited.
point here, and this is I really want to nail this down because then the next thing that a lot of people come out with when you tell them, look, I know what I'm doing. I'm personally, I do what you're saying now. I do that. I test my approaches. I'm sure Earthling Ed did the same thing. I'm sure Joey did the same thing. Gary did the same thing. These people that, like, I'm not saying I'm with them, but I'm saying, like, the most successful, let's say, people that we look up to that we're talking about now, most of them didn't just get big or get more awareness by accident. They tested and tried and changed and tested and changed and tested until they found something that worked and it reached more people. So they repeated it, and that's how we end up with Flinged getting on TV and radio and being famous, and how we get, Joey getting on TV, and they get there because they've tested it and they see it works and they keep doing it, right? So the comeback that I've had, the main argument when I've said this to people, I said, hey, look, this is a 30-second reel, it's a 15-second reel, I know what I'm doing, these reach a lot more people, that's why I'm doing it. They come back and they'll say something like, well, I've done the studies, I've read the studies, and the studies say that your method of communication is actually counterproductive, and if you carry on doing this, you're not going to help people change, you're going to blah 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 blah. So we need to get into this as a topic of like Melanie Joy obviously talks about these things. There is research out there are studies out there that focus on human behavior and what causes people to change, and these things are absolutely relevant to a lot of scenarios. But I like what you just said, because we need to establish that there has been no study at all done on exactly what we're trying to do. And even if there was a study done on what influences people the most online regarding veganism, what influences people the most in a one-to-one conversation regarding veganism and animal rights, even if those studies were done, those studies are limited because 9 times out of 10, those studies, the data is gathered from them asking the person, how likely are you to go vegan from 1 to 10? Or, like, what did you think? Were you happy? They're interview studies most of the time. They're asking the individual who's just been subjected to a form of communication, what they thought about it. So I don't know what I'm looking for. It's not conclusive. That's what I'm trying to say. It's inconclusive. And I really feel like what you've just said is so necessary for us to finally put the nail into this and say, right, okay, we've got activists all over the world that are monitoring their performances based on how many people sign up after their conversations and what they do once they've signed up to Vegan Bootcamp. Do they watch a documentary? Do they actually do what you ask them to do? And if not, okay, what approach were you using? Okay, it was a very, very friendly, laid back approach. Okay, then next time, go hard and go really hard. Does that help? No. Okay, find somewhere in the middle. Did that create a better result? Yes, great. Then we have some data that says the right thing to do is bang in the middle. It's to be direct, but to be, I don't know, not friendly, but fair. We need to find out. We need to know this.
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's going to vary from person to person. So I also want to make it clear, like we're gonna when we launch, we're gonna explain a lot about this data, because we don't want it to be like a competition of like whose style is better and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There might be tips that you can take from other people, but at the end of the day, like, we want to use this data to empower each activist to think strategically, because right now it's like all of us, we're all just like shooting in the dark and hoping that that some of these points hit and that sort of thing, that we're actually making an impact. But when we know, and obviously we need enough data points, so it's I agree with you, but maybe like you need a lot more than one conversation. You would do like, 3 months worth of a certain style. And then if you wanted to test that, change your style and do 3 months worth of that. And then just compare those things. Yeah. Obviously you have to account for externalities and other, variables that might influence that. But at the end of the day, you can test different things. We can test different types of videos. There's lots of debates that have happened kind of at the academic level, where it's like, what types of videos work best for those events? Well, we can test that. We can very easily now, try different types of videos. Let's say like sad footage mixed with happy footage, and then compare that to like gruesome slaughter footage, and see what gets better results over a period of time, right? And then even within our organization, we're not going to be forcing people. We want to empower people to make their own decisions. So if, as an organizer, David, let's suppose that you found out that there's been groups around the world that have been trialing this for the past 6 months. And what they found is that the groups that play footage A instead of footage B, whatever that is, they have a 20% better results from people that go to the website, watch documentaries, and that sort of thing. Which footage would you choose as an organizer? At the end of the day, we want to empower people to make those decisions, give them the data, and then let people do what they want.
And I think it's absolutely necessary. And what I'd really like to see less of, I think using the current scientific kind of psychological studies that we have now to determine what action you take. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. I think that's really, good for you if you want to use that. Obviously, most of it is old. And I would say most studies on human psychology that haven't been done in the last couple of years are going to be largely, inaccurate. I mean, this is 2020. Have you seen the world we're in right now? It's very different to even 6 years ago. It's totally different. The animal rights movement is insanely different to what it was in the past. People's attitudes towards animal rights is just like this. It's so specific that it needs its own studies. It needs its own data. I don't believe we can just completely use data from other movements and data from other things and other topics to influence. Sorry, not to influence, but to directly predict our goals. I think we can have them influence and we can try them. But what I keep seeing and what I really don't want to see more is just people who they read a study and they're like, that's it, black and white. That study said this, so that means that this is the only way. And it's like, you need to have nuance with this. Yes, you can be inspired and influenced by other people's work on other topics with other things, but you can't just take research that's not even on what we're talking about and apply it and say that's how you should do it because this research on this other thing says that. And I see it a lot. With people who are passionate about psychology or people who are psychologists, and they seem to kind of make the idea that it's black and white. It's either you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong. And it's just so short-sighted and really disappointing to see.
And the problem, for me, I mean, a lot of what I've learned throughout my career and a lot of the stuff that I teach, so I'm not an academic at all. Like the content that I've learned has been developed by academics based on research and based on neuropsychology and, whatever other shit that they study and that they learn. And they try to get the best things together to influence and inspire people, especially when you're talking about sales, right? So they're trying to apply things that they've learned. But at the end of the day, the problem with quoting a study and saying this is the right way is that, first of all, are there lots of studies backing that? And let's suppose that there are, but then those only apply to that specific context. And there's so many different variables, so many different contexts that, I think it's silly not to inform yourself and not to try to use the best information you have. Like you said, some data or some studies are out of date. They might be. I mean, obviously you want to use the most current stuff that's built. And usually what happens, I think, in the scientific community, it's like it kind of builds on itself. So it's not like something necessarily is completely wrong. It's like maybe it's a different way or a better way of thinking about it. It kind of builds on itself. So you want to be as relevant as relevant as possible or as recent as possible. But you have to be careful with how you interpret that data. And I think that there are definitely cases of that within this movement where people are extrapolating from data or from some sort of research, and they're kind of applying it across the board and saying like, we should only be doing this because this is so itchy, man. Sorry, it's driving me crazy. What is happening here? I need like a medical. I need a medical timeout or something. Like, I feel like there's like either ants biting me or something. I don't know. Ow! Okay, I think it's this microphone. Hold on.
Could be. But okay, just to continue what you were getting at there, I think I need to clarify in that I don't think there's any inherent problem with people using that kind of data to decide what they do next and to decide how they approach this. I think it's great if you want to go and do that and you want to directly use the data, that data to okay, I'm going to try this, I'm going to go for this, I'm going to see how it goes. It's awesome. It's practically what I've done. I mean, I didn't just, change my entire YouTube without any kind of research. I did a lot of research. I watched a lot of videos, read some stuff. I read books on social influence and marketing and stuff like that to make the decision of where I want to go. But it's important when you're reading this stuff, you've got to take it and take it on board with a pinch of salt and be like, okay, yeah, this is how it works in many circumstances for when people are trying to sell something, when people are trying to build a business. But be aware that it may not work when you talk about animal rights, because we don't have a lot of data on how people on animal rights and people's attitudes to it when they are reached out, right? When they're outreached, we don't have a lot of data on that. I've seen maybe a few little surveys and stuff, but I've not seen any peer-reviewed study that shows the results of certain forms of communications when specifically discussing veganism and animal rights, right? And I guess the line that I'm drawing here is that I think I'm influenced massively by marketing data and marketing, the books that I've read and all that good stuff. I'm influenced by it, but I'm by no means going to go over to somebody else's channel or somebody else's account and tell them, hey, you should stop doing this and you should do what I do because I read a book and I read a study and this study told me that what you're doing is wrong, so you should stop doing it because you're bad for the animals. That's what I'm talking about when I say that is so short-sighted. It's so short-sighted and so naive to think that, yeah, this thing that wasn't even on the topic that you're talking about, these results that weren't even on a topic you're talking about are suddenly perfectly 100% applicable to what you're talking about and will work the exact same way, and you shouldn't do it any other way. It's a really it sounds like I'm being very extreme here, and I'm explaining an extreme stance that maybe nobody has, but I'm telling you, lots of vegans have this stance. Lots of vegans take this position of like what I've just said. Like, I've done the research, and this is the right way, right? And they apply. They come after you with their bullshit. They come after our banks. They come after me. They criticize Gary Yourofsky, saying like, no. The research says what these people do is too aggressive and wrong and won't make any difference. And it's like, yeah, this is one of the main influences actually for jumping on here, really. What do you think about that? What's your response to what I just said? I guess people are going to want to hear, not just me. They might want to hear what you have to say on this.
Like, I think it's I think it's egotistical for someone, unless they have like a lot of experience, to say, I read a study and so I know that what you're doing is wrong and ineffective, and like like you said, I would consider myself a kind of like an expert in some respects when it comes to communication. And like I said, not on the academic side, but because my job has depended on it for so long, my livelihood, and I've been fairly successful at it, and then taught it for a long time. Like I understand concepts fairly deeply, to a certain extent. So even understanding that, like, and maybe because I understand that, I also can't flat out say that like this is ineffective. I mean, I could look at a conversation for sure. I could look at Ed, I could look at Joey, I could look at anybody, I could look at your conversations. I could probably provide coaching for all you guys that would increase percentages a little bit, like what I, the suggestions that I made for you about talking about fur, for example, like breaking the ice a little bit first before you jump into the heavy topic sort of thing. That should increase your percentages from what I know. But at the end of the day, like, Rob Banks shaming people on fur, how the hell am I going to know what the actual impact of, the viewer on TMZ seeing that? How do I know how many people are going to be affected by that? Or this is the other thing too. Like, I studied marketing a little bit in university, but one thing that you learn about advertising and marketing is that people need. Now, again, I don't know if this applies to veganism, but in when it comes to business, for example, let's say Apple, people need to come across the concept of the iPhone, for example, many times. Like I forget, there's a number, I don't really know, but it's like 7 or 8 or 12 times before it really starts, like, they start recognizing it, that sort of thing. And so that's why companies are constantly slapping their freaking logos on race cars, draw on golfers' hats and stuff, just because people see it. And it's just like this impression. It's like, it's the same as, I guess, some of the social media. It's an impression on people's minds, on their psyches.
Yeah.
So the same thing applies to veganism. I could only assume that, like, if Rob Banks gets on TMZ because he was so, whatever you want to call it, controversial, aggressive, is that a bad thing or a good thing? I don't know, because the alternative is he doesn't make it on TMZ, and there's not that imprint of animal rights. Right now, I want to move away from veganism. Like, it's all about animal rights, right? We want people to think about animal rights, and of course, veganism is tied to that. But I'm not even a fan of that V word, not because we don't understand it, but because a lot of the public doesn't understand it. So, like, when someone even uses that word and says, "Oh, are you vegan?" I never answer that question. I love answering questions with questions. So if someone says, "Are you vegan?" I would say, "Well, I don't know. That depends on what your definition is of, what does that mean to you? What does being vegan mean?" Yeah. And so now I want them to tell me what they think that is. And if it's like a plant-based definition, then I'm like, well, then by that, I'm not vegan. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And then you kind of create that curiosity in them, and you involve them in the dialogue, that sort of thing. So yeah, the V word is confusing for a lot of people because there's so many, it gets confused with plant-based so often. So that's, by the way, that's one thing that if people are not bored by this and they're still watching, that's one thing I think that we can really very easily and non-aggressively, if you don't want to be that way, just help define the word and define, like, when people say vegan, what it actually means. And it's a great way to get people's opinions of what they think it means, like, or to them, what does that mean? When you hear the word vegan, what does that mean to you? Oh, people that eat salads and carrots and shit like that. I'm like, okay, well then by that definition, I'm not, because I eat burgers and pizzas, So, yeah.
Sure. No, I feel you. It's I think it also, again, that's a situational approach, situation-based approach. I think for most situations, that's going to go down really well. I think for some situations, people, for example, right, if you tried the technique you're talking about, the coaching technique, in most situations I've used it, it has worked, but there's been situations where I have not been able to use it because I know that if I speak to this other person in this way, they're going to say something like, well, what the fuck is wrong with you? Are you some kind of posh person or something? Why can't you talk normally? And I think, again, and it's about the situation. It's about you'd have to adapt that approach for that kind of individual. Like, for example, where I'm from, in a place called Chorley, if I spoke to someone on the street with those kinds of questions that you were asking just now, like, well, what does veganism mean to you? They'd just be like, a lot of people would just be like, well, cut the shit and tell me what are you here for? Like, I've not got all day, mate. What do you want? Like, okay, I'll talk to you, but like, they want to be spoken to in a certain way. So again, like, that's not a criticism of the approach. I love the approach and I use it most of the time, but there's been times where I have definitely not used it on purpose because I know that this person is just going to laugh at me if I talk to him like him, usually a guy, because it's this macho bullshit thing, right? And if you kind of talk to them like some kind of psychologist or something, they'll just be like, fuck off, mate.
Listen, man, it's all about, and this is the best piece of advice I have for, like, anyone, and this includes the people in the chat who are just like, I just see that people are fighting each other in the chat. Like, it's all about learning to be adaptable. And okay, so number one is removing your ego from these situations. So again, like, in the chat, I see people are arguing and they're fighting each other and saying that people aren't vegan or you're promoting this and that, whatever. What, like, first of all, like, what's your goal with arguing with someone on that? Like, are you trying to positively influence them? Are you just frustrated and you want to kind of, are you just trying to prove that you're right? Like what is your actual goal, right? And I mean, usually when I ask myself that question, it's like, why am I wasting my time? Like, there was lots of times when, in my first few years of being vegan, I would waste hours and hours online, like, arguing with people about veganism. And it was such a effing waste. Are we allowed to swear on YouTube? Yes, we are, I guess. Yeah. It was such a waste of time. And I was just like burnt out. It was just frustrating. And I realized that, like, it was just ineffective. It was such an ineffective use of my time and energy, more importantly. Because I could have been wasting my time in other ways, but my energy was just being drained having these conversations. It's like, okay, well, what's my end goal here? And if my goal, like, fuck, man, having conversations over online on social media with people you can't even see, who you don't know, people misinterpreting the tone of the messages always gets people fired up and heated. And then, Nobody gets, it's not productive, you know? So it's like, sometimes you got to chill out. You got to like put your ego out of it, and ask yourself, like, what are you hoping to achieve? And that's where adaptability comes in. And then you're right, when you're dealing with some guys, it's a bit of a macho thing. And sometimes, like, I've realized, yeah, you can't take the same approach with everyone else, especially at the beginning. Like, you have to build that rapport, and people won't, like, they'll give you that, like, okay, cut the bullshit type of thing. If they feel like you're being too, whatever it is, I don't know, soft with them, right? Maybe they're used to a little bit more of an aggressive approach. So you got to start off more aggressive, or you got to be witty, you got to be funny, you got to like show that you're maybe kind of dominant in that conversation, and then you get them to actually lower their defenses a little bit. And I'm actually a bunch of British guys, a bunch of drunk British guys that I remember came up to we were doing street activism, and they walked up and they were just being all like belligerent and just making fun of us because they've been drinking. And I realized, like, I couldn't just go up and be like some like nice, kind person. Like, I kind of like put it to them, and I showed them a little bit of like, yeah, that I could kind of be dominant as well, to the point where I recognized they respected me, and then we could have a softer conversation. But that takes a ton of practice and adaptability. So that's why, like, there's no one right approach. You can't just be like, oh, you should have just been nice to them and calm. And like, I wasn't, you know, and sometimes you can get a little bit heated with people, but you have to be able to understand like how it's going to affect them, and how to keep your ego out of it. It's hard sometimes for me too. Like, it's not always possible in my personal life and that sort of thing. I struggle with it, but with animal rights, I'm pretty good at it now, because you just kind of know what people are going to come at you with, and they're going to come up with like either personal attacks on you. They're going to come up with, you know, some, you know, whatever. God put animals for us to here to eat. And that's why when you practice all that stuff, you practice kind of going over how you're going to handle those things, and kind of what questions to ask and how to guide people through them. Then it's just like, it's a fun challenge. I like it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
absolutely.
What else do you want to talk about?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, conclude on that point there, and kind of conclude on what we've gone over so far, in case people have kind of got lost in the muddied waters there. It's not so, we're not jumped from topic to topic very crystal clearly. But I guess ultimately it's kind of what we both already knew, but what I feel like a lot of people don't know, or they do know, but they just don't consider it, is that all these different approaches that people take, unless their approach, okay, with the exception of any approach that actually directly encourages people to harm, you know, to continue harming animals. Like, for example, an example of an approach that I would stand up against every single time is any approach that kind of apologizes for being vegan, or tells people take it slow, you know, do it in your own time. These kinds of approaches literally cause animals to suffer, all right? They cause animals to continue to be harmed. Then I draw the line at that point. But anything at all after that point, yeah, of course, some of the things aren't going to be as effective. Some of them are going to be less effective. Some people are going to be very aggressive. But to tell them to stop, to say that they're ineffective, it's ineffective, like they're not effective in any way, is just absolute nonsense. If someone puts out a message, literally a video that says, go fucking vegan, you animal abuser, stop doing this now, and they post that, right? That's all they say, and post that. That's not ineffective. That will influence somebody. If 10 people see that, I'm telling you, 2 people might even share it and say, wow, look at this aggressive vegan. If they react to it, it means it was effective. And I'm not talking about if they go vegan. That is something that we can't really influence on social media. You can't. You're just guessing. If you tell me that your post to make people go vegan without any hard data, you're chatting shit. You're just guessing, all right? We have to put out what we put out. And if people tell us they went vegan, then all right, we can take their word for it. If they don't tell us, but we don't know, all right? My point is it's not ineffective to do a message like that. It might not be as effective as another message, but it's not going to cause problems. It's not going to cause animals to be harmed. It's a good message to have and to send out, even though it is aggressive in your eyes. However, if someone's putting out a message like, for example, this guy over in a sanctuary in India, I won't name names, but one of the only times I've ever publicly criticized a vegan and their activism is this one. I think it's one of the only times I've ever done it, actually. It might be the only time I've done it publicly, is he sat in his sanctuary with a cow by the side of him, telling people, if you can't be vegan, then just be kind of vegan, be vegan-ish, he was saying. Just cut that with a cow next to him that he rescued from the dairy industry. He's telling people, don't worry if you can't do it, just do as much as you can. I couldn't believe it. It was the most disgusting thing I think I've ever seen from a vegan, to sit there with a victim of that industry telling people, if you still want to pay for this, go for it, with this, rescued victim. It was just so sick. So that's one of the only times I've stepped out. And that's one of the only times I would recommend a vegan to step up publicly and to criticize another vegan, is if they are doing something that is actually encouraging people to harm animals. But if their message is unapologetic, if their message is that you have to go vegan because animals are suffering, animals deserve rights and you shouldn't do this, then I don't see, if you want to criticize them, maybe send them a message, right? But you can't say it's flat out ineffective, because you don't know that. It's absolute bullshit. And as we've already been through here, there are all these different approaches and they all work for someone. Maybe there are less effective and more effective, but they all work for someone, right?
Yeah. So my question to you is like, I'm not someone that promotes like reducitarianism or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also know that that's a very natural process for people to go through when they decide or when they want to go vegan, right? Like people struggle to give up, their favorite food, cheese. Like, okay, I'll give up meat, but they struggle with cheese and blah, 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 right? So my question to you is, one, and this is a question for me too. It's like, how do we know that if the end goal is getting someone to be vegan? And I'm going to give you a scenario, and I'm not defending this per se because I don't promote it myself. Like when I have conversations with people, I don't talk about that. The coaching conversation leads kind of to a different goal. Yeah. But I just got a message from one of my best friends, who like super open to veganism, has gotten past the defensive stage. He's not vegan. Got past the defensive stage, and then every time we got together, because I took the liberation pledge, he happily we would go out to vegan meals, and he loved the vegan meals, and he realized that like he really liked vegan food, and so he kind of became like what Melanie Joy would call a vegan ally. Like he wasn't vegan, but he defended vegans. If anybody made fun of me, he would like defend me. Like he wouldn't join in on the bashing. And then he just sent me a message saying like he had tried to go vegan maybe a year ago, and he failed. And then he just like was not vegan. And then now he just sent me a message, and he's like, hey bro, I just want to let you know, like, I want to try going vegan again. And he's like, but I'm going to change my approach, because when I first went vegan, I had this all or nothing approach. And so when I failed, I just felt like shit. And then I just gave up, whereas now what he's doing is he's going to like, he has the right mindset. He knows it's messed up. He knows it's wrong. He knows everything about it. So he's going to do it, but he's not going to beat himself up if he fails. And he's going to continue working to the end goal, which is, whatever. So what am I supposed to say to him? Am I supposed to text him back and be like, well, actually, you're a pretty big piece of shit if you do that. Like, you should just fucking cut it out right now, right?
No.
And so it's this weird thing. Like, I'm not going to bash him for taking that approach because I feel like a lot of people have that. When you have that all or nothing mentality, it's counterproductive to your end goal. Like if I say, oh, I want to be fit, and I go to the gym, and I crush it for a few weeks, and I don't notice any gains, and then I fall off the wagon. I'm not going 4 times a week anymore. I'm only going twice. And then I start beating myself up for not going 4 times a week, and then I just quit. Like that's bad. It's better if I keep going 2 times a week and then work on the motivation, the coaching, whatever I need to get back up to 4 times a week, whatever, right? But so how do you balance that out? That's my question. Is like, how do you balance that out with like, we know people will do that. It might be counterproductive to like force people into an all or nothing mindset, yet you don't want to be promoting harm to animals, right? How do you balance that?
I think you've touched on something that I think a lot, there's a good point to talk about, because a lot of vegans have this exact mindset that you've just spoken about, where they say, well, small steps are easier for people to do, and so we should give them time, we should encourage them to take time and all this stuff like that. And a lot of vegans will get upset with me for saying, no, don't do that, right? Now this is the thing, there's two. There is a big difference between understanding that people take time to do these things, and that making a change does take time, whether we like it or not. Some people do it overnight. That's awesome. A lot of people don't. A lot of people go vegetarian first, and then they, they go slowly, right? There's a big difference between understanding that and advocating for that. We should all, every one of us, understand that people take time to make these changes. And yes, it's fucking shit because we don't want them to take time. We want it to happen now because the animals are suffering. However, if we specifically tell them, no, don't take time. I don't care how long. You don't go vegetarian. Don't do this. Don't do that. Then yeah, we create a situation where maybe some people would just be overwhelmed and say, well, I don't know what the fuck to do anymore, and maybe they just kind of ignore you and just go back to living mindlessly because it's easier. Then that's true, but that's not what I advocate. I don't think saying that to people is the right thing. I don't think I've ever said to somebody, don't do that first. Don't go do it right now. Go vegan right now. I don't. If in a video, yeah, maybe, because that's different, right? I'm not talking to somebody one-to-one, but if I'm talking to somebody one-to-one or one to a group, my aim of that conversation is to leave them with the mindset of, I need to go vegan. I need to do it. Now, I can't influence them. I can't, make them do it right now, but I can give them a message that makes it very clear that the right thing to do for the animals is to go vegan now. If they go ahead and go vegetarian, that's their thing. I can't stop that. It's nothing to do with me. I did everything I possibly could. But where I feel like it's important to distinguish here is that if I tell them go vegetarian first, then I have given a confusing message here. I've given a message that says, well, animal abuse is wrong, but whilst you're changing, some of it's okay. That's not a message I would ever give. And if somebody directly asked me, like, should I go vegetarian first? I'd say, well, no, because the animals need you to go vegan. All right. What can I do to help you get to that point faster? What can I do for you today that's going to make it so you can become vegan tomorrow? And they might say, well, okay, recipes and stuff. They still probably won't do it tomorrow, but at least I'm giving the message that it needs to be done tomorrow. I'm giving the message it needs to be done ASAP. I feel like we should never be giving them any other message because they're going to go veggie or reduce. And it's like they're going to do it regardless of what you say. Most people, right? Because it's easier that way. That people go for the easy road. We should be advocating for the hard road. And to use your exact example to try and make it really clear what I'm trying to say, the gym. As a personal trainer, do you want your personal trainer to be encouraging you to go aim for the fucking stars? Like, really to be awesome and amazing? Or do you want your personal trainer to be encouraging you to just try and get there once a week, just to do what you can, all right? Yeah. No, that's not what you're paying for. You don't want this personal
David,
trainer to... Go ahead, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that's one thing that we all have to be conscious about, is that also is a different context when someone is voluntarily going to, let's say, to hire a coach or a trainer.
Yeah.
That trainer has like a sort of permission to act in a certain way. Whereas like when we're having a conversation with someone on the street, they haven't really voluntarily, like they haven't come to you and said, hey man, teach me about animal rights. So it's a different context. And that's why, like, that's another thing with Gary Yourofsky. Everyone that watched Gary Yourofsky's speech, like every single person I think probably on this planet that has watched Gary Yourofsky's speak in person or on YouTube has voluntarily chosen to do that. Nobody put a gun to their head. They went and they sat down for a lecture, or they clicked on this channel or on the video, and they could have clicked off at any time, but they sat there like this and they watched the whole thing. Sure. So there's a different way that you can talk to people when they are voluntarily, seeking that information. Yeah.
If you have actually gone out into the street and stopped someone, and the thing is, it's like they have voluntarily stopped for a conversation with you. It's not like you have just started shouting in their face and they don't want to hear it. Like they can leave, when they stop to talk, they see the screen, they stop, you start talking to them, they have multiple opportunities to walk away. And you make it that way, don't you? I mean, I personally, when I talk to somebody in the street, I make sure with the way I am stood, with the way I'm speaking, that they can just go. Like they don't have to stand there. And sometimes I even say that if I don't feel like it's going well, I'll be like, hey, do you want to, you can go if you want. Like, I'm not here to force you. I'm not here to force you to talk to me, Do
you know what's interesting? That's actually a sales tactic that high pressure salespeople use. Right. And it's called like feigning indifference. indifference.
Okay.
So when you pretend that you don't give a shit, like, hey man, if you want to
I'm
go,
not
you can get the
pretending.
fuck out of here.
I'm
Yeah,
not pretending.
I know, or not pretend, or
They can go,
You're
like,
being
you know,
real.
there's
But
more
the funny
people to
thing is
talk
that
to.
actually, that often, because it shows you're not needy,
Yeah.
then it actually usually draws people in and kind of makes them more interested, because they realize like you actually don't care if they stay and
Yeah.
talk. But I think you also have to realize that, like, because of the way that we're socially conditioned, like
Yep.
a lot of people, some people might be like, screw you and leave mid conversation. But most people, when they're in a conversation, even if they might not want to be in it, are not just going to like up and go, because there's this like weird, whatever.
Depending on the
social
country,
interaction.
yeah. Depending on
Depending on the
country,
person. And some people do. Like, some people won't even let you start a conversation, and some people, it also depends on like the what's it called, the social style, their personality types, that sort of thing.
I guess my point is like, even when being told something you don't want, I guess to conclude this, maybe this will help us like a line here. Even if you're being told something that you don't want to do, for example, let's imagine like now with the lockdown, right? And in most countries, like in the UK, they've come down really, really hard on the lockdown. Actually, no, let's use a better example. Let's use, I think India is a good example, because we were in that when it happened, right? And the lockdown regulations they gave in India were really, really, really harsh. I believe in the area I was in, they were like quite extreme, considering there hadn't been any other lockdown. It just seemed a little bit intense, right? And I thought, wow, that seems a bit harsh considering they've not really built up to it. And then I realized that's because in India, there's like 2 billion people, and they know, the government, they're not stupid. They know if they put a really, 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 harsh regulation down, that a good chunk of people are going to, maybe do it, but the majority are not going to do it. But they'll be influenced by how extreme it was, and they might do something that's lesser than that, if that makes sense. They might do something not quite as, they won't follow the rules, but they'll be influenced by that extreme rule that was put in. My point is, it's kind of like, it's a bad comparison, because obviously going vegan isn't extreme, but my point is, when we're advocating for someone to be vegan and not to go and do other things and like go vegetarian and all these things, because obviously we want them to stop harming animals, we set the precedent that stop harming animals is the goal. And maybe they'll look at that and say, that's too much for me, right? But if we say, okay, no, going vegetarian is your goal, then they're going to do the same thing. Well, no, that's too much for me. And they'll just keep lowering the bar, because that's what we all do, man. This is what we do. When someone gives you a challenge, that you don't want to do it, you tend to lower the bar and go, okay, I'll build up to it. You know what I mean? It's a natural thing.
Yeah, dude, I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on that point, which is why, like, I don't try to coach people to anything less than veganism. And like you said, it's up to them if they're unable to do that or whatever. But I will always, I'll always
is the one, isn't it?
praise and reinforce positive behavior change while helping them recognize. And this is the thing, like, I don't tell them that's not the end goal. I help them recognize that just because they say, okay, I'll give up meat, but I'm going to keep eating eggs and cheese. First of all, I'm going to spend time positively reinforcing them for making that decision. I'm going to say, that's friggin' amazing. Like, what made you decide to give up meat? And I'm going to reinforce that decision so that they can then apply the same decision-making skills that they use to do that to eggs and cheese, right? I can, and they're going to be saying these things, and they're going to be, in essence, they're going to be holding themselves accountable to their own ideas and their own values. And that's really what coaching is. It's just helping people generate that self accountability to how they feel, but their actions are not aligning, right? So
it's interesting.
But,
go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've got a bit of a different take on that, actually, and I think this is maybe we've had this discussion before. I don't know. We can see now.
If you have a different take on it, then you're wrong. But go ahead. Yeah. Just kidding.
Yeah. My take on this is that so I don't positively reinforce that decision, because then I feel like I'm positively reinforcing a decision that is still continuing to harm animals. And the reason I go
is giving up meat harming animals?
No, but continuing to consume the other products is. And by reinforcing the situation that they're currently in, where they have given up one but continue to eat in the other, that to me feels like I'm reinforcing that decision to do that, and that they'll just continue with what they were doing previously.
But are you reinforcing the decision? And so within coaching, there's the yes and approach, right? So are you reinforcing the negative behavior or the positive behavior? Because
I don't think
we know that, like,
I don't believe they make a
Okay.
distinction. I believe most people
You,
will just
yeah,
take
but you
the
can make
fight.
but you can make the distinction as the coach, right? So if you're talking to someone and they say, "Hey," let's say your friend calls you up and says, "Hey, man, I know that you're vegan. You always talk about this stuff, and like I've been thinking about it, and I decided like for me, eggs and dairy, I don't think I can give those up. But I made a decision. I'm not going to eat any more meat. So any meat, chicken, anything that comes from an animal, meat-wise, whatever, I'm not going to eat it."
Yeah.
And this is where I think a lot of people drop the ball. This is my perception.
Sure.
That people will instantly go to the negative. They will start, when someone says that, instead of focusing on the positive values and the positive decisions that that person went through, or the decision-making process that they went to, and then applying that to eggs and cheese as well, they just instantly go negative. They're like, "Oh, well, why can't you give up this?"
Yeah,
And
that's
then,
a mistake. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think so. So my end goal is obviously making them realize how the reason for giving up meat, or they just have a different objection for cheese and eggs, right? So then it's like reinforcing the positive, building rapport, showing them you're not there to like make them feel like an asshole. Because dude, how many people didn't give up meat, right? A million, a billion, gajillion.
Yeah.
So this person made that decision. Awesome. Good on you. What made you make that decision? Well, I don't want animals to suffer. Cool. Okay. So you obviously know that animals suffer probably even worse for cheese and eggs, right? So what's stopping you from doing that? Okay. Now let's objection handle.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the exact same. That's the exact same road I take, but without
most people don't.
Without, I know. Yeah, I agree with you.
Most people don't. They'll just attack the negative. They'll just jump to the negative right away.
Yeah, my only distinction between the biggest distinction between what me and you do is that I will flat out, I will never congratulate someone or celebrate someone that is continuing to harm animals. I don't care. I don't care if they've got it. If they've got rid of. If they've got rid of meat, if they've got rid of eggs, and they're still consuming dairy, and as if that they're almost. People say they're almost there. Like that's. I will not celebrate that. I don't believe that there is any. I just don't feel. I don't feel it's right, and I don't feel it's right for them. I don't feel it's right for what I stand for to actually positively be positive about that at all. So what I'll end up doing is just very similar to you, but without that. Oh, that's great. I won't give any positive reinforcement whatsoever. The only time anyone's going to get any positivity from me regarding their lifestyle is when they tell me like, "Hey, you've really helped me. We've done this. I'm now living vegan," and then I'll be like, "You get us all the positivity you want. I'll celebrate with you. I'll be pumped with you. I'll send you some advice and all recipes, all that stuff. We'll do all the good stuff, the good fun stuff. I won't give anyone that." Until that moment, but up until that point, if someone says I cut out meat, I'll say, okay, what was the reason you cut out meat? I just jump straight into the question, like, all right, that's interesting. That's one of my favorite go-tos. Oh, that's really interesting. What's the reason you did that? But I'll never say that's great, because I feel like I'm giving them a pat on the back for abusing animals because they've only cut out meat, and that I'm not going to pat them on the back for continuing to contribute to animals.
Would you take the same approach if you were like, let's say you were coaching me, like you're training me in the gym, right? Yeah. And like, I've never done a proper pull-up before, right? So you're teaching me, and you tell me to focus on like part of that action, right? And I start doing that well. Yeah. Would you positively reinforce that? Like, okay, good, you got that down. Now let's focus on something else. Or are you going to be like, you suck?
Well, I wouldn't say you suck to somebody who's just
but like
meat either.
I can't maybe not expressing myself like clearly.
I understand what
like,
you're trying to say.
What is the harm in you're not saying, okay, you're done, good for you. No, it's like, hey, you're making you're thinking the right way. You're making progress, right? And positively and think about this, and this is why I'm a big advocate of that. You might be the only person who's giving them any positive reinforcement for that. Because guess what? All their friends and family are giving them shit. They're like,
okay, hold up.
Whatever.
Let me just give you giving up meat. One of the people in the comments just gave a really good point here, and I was going to make the same point, but I'll use theirs. They said, this is Mimi saying, how about we use a more accurate analogy like domestic abuse? So using this analogy, if I was trying to coach someone to stop abusing their partner, would I take this approach? So okay, you've stopped punching her or him, and now you've moved on. You're just kicking and spitting at them now. Are we going to say, well, that's great, well done, you've done a great that's a really good step. Now, can we move on to the kicking and spitting? No, we'd say, okay, and what was the reason you stopped punching? Well, because I feel like it's wrong to punch her. Okay, but what about the spitting and the kicking and the stabbing, for example? And it's not funny, but you get my point, right? We wouldn't congratulate them on stopping punching him or her. We would move on to stopping altogether. That's the position I take on this, and I guess I'm happy this Mimi made that comment, because I was trying to formulate that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let me with that example, because in this case, I mean, to try to make it a little bit more accurate, you're talking about, like, let's say they're no longer harming cows, but they're still harming chickens and or whatever. You get my point.
Well, they're still harming cows, but in different ways. They're not eating the cow's bodies, but they're harming them in other ways.
So yeah, exactly. Or they've given up everything except eggs. Yeah. Okay, so they're harming chickens, let's say, but they've stopped harming other animals. So let's suppose someone came to you, right, and they come to you and say, hey, David, man, I need help, right? Because I have anger issues, and when I come home, I beat the shit out of my dog and my cat. I just beat the crap out of them, right? And I know it's wrong, but I'm messed up, right? And you start going through some therapy with them, and then next therapy session, they come back and say, hey, man, good news. Like, whatever we talked about helped me, and I stopped hitting my dog. Like, I stopped hitting my dog, but I still hit my cat, right? Yep. It's the same, to me, it's the same idea. It's like, first of all, it's like, okay, like, that's good that you stopped beating your dog, but what made you decide to do it? Or how, like, all I really care about is, like, recognizing they've done something good, right? Or not bad, whatever. It's either not negative or positive, however you want to call that. In this case, it's not negative, but it's moving towards good. And it's like, how did you do that? How did you stop beating your dog? Well, I started recognizing that, like, the dog, every time I kicked him, feels pain, and whatever. I put myself in his position, right? Okay, cool. So what's stopping you from putting yourself in your cat's position?
I think to really,
this is such a dumb example, maybe. But.
No. I think we're in the same boat, because what you've said here, I don't believe saying it's good that you stopped kicking your dog. I don't believe that is a congratulation. I don't even believe that's really positive reinforcement. That's just it's almost a neutral statement. That's just literally what it is. It is good that you are not doing that anymore. It's clearly what I'm against is saying, oh, well done. That's amazing that you've made that decision. It's not amazing, and it's not well done. You've done nothing of note. You've just done something that you should have already done. So it's good that you've done that. Now let's move on to what else you can do. That's where I'm trying to distinguish, make the difference between here. I don't believe in a celebration of something that is nothing, really, in the grand scale of things.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Ah, man, it is a tricky topic. I totally 100% see your point of view, and I kind of struggle with it, because at the end of the day, like, what I really care about is being effective, is getting that person to, to aligning all of their actions with their values. Sure. And it's kind of the way that I've learned to do that. But maybe it's not the right approach with every single person. Maybe some people need positive encouragement. Some need a much more harder approach, like a harder coach, So I got to think about that more. And
it's what we're here to discuss, because we have a wide range of people doing a wide range of things, which is what we wanted to get into. And it's back, there's a full circle back around to the original point that we made at the start, and that it's not black and white. It is never black and white. And I think you are like this, Alex. I know you are. I've seen you talk to people in a way more direct way than you teach. I've seen how you can be straight. I've seen you respond to some YouTube comments almost as I respond to people.
Totally. I'm much more savage in my responses, because it's a different. It depends on the person too and how they react, but it's a different scenario, different context, and there's a different audience as well, potentially. Absolutely. It's not just that person reading them. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we have to consider that. We have to look at different tactics, and tactic sounds like a little bit, sinister, but we have to look at different approaches and different types of communication for different situations. It can't just be, there's no one size fits all with this. And Although it seems like there is, and this is the problem with the internet. Actually, it's polarized us. We have, people think that Rob Banks only screams at people. People think Earthling Ed only talks to people with a nice, calm English accent and never shouts ever. And they think Gary is always like that. And this is what social media teaches us, that we only show people what we want people to see. So if that is their style, they want to stick to their style. They want to make it consistent so that people can follow them and they know what to expect. But that's not all who they are. I guarantee you that I'm sure Ed has had some conversations that are closer to the way Rob Banks speaks to people. I promise you, of course he has had those conversations. And I'm sure Rob Banks has had the same conversations as Ed tends to have with people, calm and, more relaxed and more taking time. And I'm sure Ed has screamed at people before. But this isn't what they want to show you, because this is not the style that they have built their activism around. This is not what they have built their social media around. And I think there's nuance in this. There's a lot of nuance in this, and people wear different hats for different scenarios and different situations. And it's really important to. I feel like people are just so I don't know what you would say, like overwhelmed with social media. They think everything that's on social media is this is it. This is that person. They're no different. They do everything they do, and who they are is captured in this YouTube. YouTube channel and Instagram, and it's like, no, that's not them. They're different in different places with different people. And I've met Joey a few times, and when Joey's one-on-one, he is nothing like his YouTube channel. He is nothing like he is in his videos at all. He's totally different. He's super calm. He's super chill. He's really friendly. He's really nice, and he's friendly and nice on YouTube and stuff as well. But he's very different. And when he gets going in a conversation or a debate, then he becomes more like he is on YouTube. But social media doesn't represent everything someone is. And I think we need to all realize that there are all these different approaches. Most activists are using most of them. They're just not showing you all the other times that they're using different approaches, and maybe being a bit more angry or maybe a bit more calm, and because it's just not what they're doing, But I've got a question. This is not even a segue. I just want to ask you this question because it's been an interesting topic for me to consider. So so check this out, right? We have somebody like, let's go talk about somebody we've not talked about before. So James Aspie, we haven't touched on. So let's say James Aspie, let's say maybe like a year ago when he was more posting about, he was really focusing on ethics. Like that was like every post, right? I think it was about a year ago, 6 months ago. Obviously he's doing more lifestyle stuff right now, which is whatever. It's totally up to him, whatever. Don't start bitching about James Aspie in the comments, please. Not interested in that. But yeah, when he was posting more ethics stuff, like consistently all the time, he was reaching, I don't know, let's put a number on it. Let's say like in a year, maybe he reached a couple of million people, you could say, maybe with his content. Maybe 1 million, 1.5 million, a few videos went viral. Now, these plant-based influencers that don't talk about ethics almost ever, they're reaching like 1 million every 3 months, some of them reach 1 million a week. You know what I mean? Some of these are huge influencers. So now my question is, what's more effective in animal rights activism and, let's say, raising awareness of veganism and what happens to the animals? Focusing on ethics and reaching less people, or focusing on lifestyle and plant-based living, recipes, all that kind of stuff, and reaching like potentially 1,000 times more people, but the ethics is largely, at the back of the mind in those posts. It's largely like an afterthought. What is more effective?
I think that scenario would never really happen, because it's like I think we started the conversation almost on this point, which is like you're gonna, it's like the marketing side. It's like one is an ad for plant-based foods, and a guy like, if we're talking about Aspie, let's say if he has, by the way, I'm not on social media a lot, so sure. I don't exactly know, like if you say his posts have kind of moved towards more lifestyle stuff, then if that's the case, and let's suppose he realizes he's getting better engagement, he's getting whatever, but occasionally he sprinkles in the ethical message, because I do know that he just posted videos from a slaughterhouse, for example.
Yeah.
So if occasionally, if he's finding some balance and he finds that he's getting better engagement that way, then by all means, like, if you're getting more people and you're getting more engagement, you're getting more views, you're getting more positive comments, you're getting more people saying, hey man, thanks, I'm vegan now because of you, like, do it. I'm pretty sure that James is, I don't know, I mean, I could only assume that, he's interested in being the most effective, and he's, probably through years of doing what he's doing, he's learning kind of, like you said, the algorithms, what gets more engagement, how he can reach more people, So I don't know. I didn't
necessarily mean specifically on James. What I'm trying to get at here is, okay, I mean, it's a debate that I don't think many people have had, but look, we talk about animal rights. Like, you talk about animal rights, I talk about animal rights, veganism. We focus on the animals. We focus on ethics. Most of the people in this chat who have accounts, Instagrams, YouTubes, etc., they focus on the ethics. What I'm saying is, all of us here together are reaching 1% maybe of the audience that just one of these lifestyle vegans is reaching. All right, it's insane. Like, the amount of people they reach versus the amount of people we reach is just it's a phenomenal difference. So what I'm getting at here is, what do we think is more effective in encouraging, or let's say bottom line, we can only speculate, of course, but like, people going vegan, who has more of an influence and who is causing more people to go vegan? All of us that talk about ethics, right, who reach a significantly lower amount of people, or the ones who are barely talking about ethics, but they're reaching a significantly higher amount of people. I guess what I'm trying to say is quality versus quantity. Obviously, I feel like we're saying the right things, but we don't have the quantity. They are saying different things. They're not talking about ethics, but they have the quantity. They have literally millions of people seeing their content. Which is more important? Which is more effective? The message or the reach? That's a tough question, right?
That's impossible to know without statistics and numbers, because basically for me, the plant-based, whatever you want to call them, influencers, are like the gateway. It's like the gateway drug to veganism, right? Like, we are the drug dealers. We're selling the hard drug, and they're like, here, give this a taste, like, or whatever. Or it's the gateway drug. So I don't know, man. And at the end of the day, like, I'm not gonna bash a plant-based influencer for what they do. Like,
no way.
There's so much armchair quarterbacking, as it's called. Like, people that are just sitting there, like, telling people what they should be doing, but they're doing fuck all. Sorry, but they're not doing anything, and they're just sitting there pointing their fingers. You got to do that. You should do that. It's just like, shut the fuck up and go do it. If you know the right way, if you know the most effective way to veganize the world, go and do it. That's kind of what I like to see people doing, and I love to see people trying new things and doing things. Like, I have no time for people that just sit there and criticize people all day. And, like, by the way, like, you know me, right? Like, I'm super open-minded, and if somebody has suggestions on how I can do things better, I absolutely want to hear it. And any feedback that comes from, like, a well-intentioned point, like, for sure, but people that just want to like, just put you down because they know better. Good for you, man. Go and do it then, And
totally. Cool. You've kind of, like, I want to get onto that as well. But I guess before we move on
By
to
the
that
way,
point, I'll just close this.
I have a question. How long is this stream?
As long as we want it to be, man. It can be 5 hours, 6 hours.
Okay.
Is that a hint that you want to get out of here?
I mean, where I am, it's 8:15 p.m. and I haven't had dinner yet. So
all right, man.
Maybe I'm good for like another 15 minutes.
Well, we've got a super chat. We are the drug dealers. Alex Bez 2020. Thanks, James. Thanks for the super chat.
Great.
Thanks for the contribution.
Out of this whole live stream, this is the quote that's.
This is the one that's gonna. Fantastic. Yeah, this is the one that's gonna stick. All right. Yeah. We'll move on then. I'll conclude that point and I'll just touch on this last point. I think it's a good one to close on, actually. But with the influencers versus the activists kind of argument, you're right. We have no way of knowing, and that's a reason for the activists who are here right now and the people who are all about the ethics. It's a reason for you guys to. If somebody is doing plant-based lifestyle stuff and they are not talking about ethics, but they are absolutely advocating for people to consume only vegan products, and you're gonna criticize them because they're not doing what you think they should be doing, maybe hold your tongue, right? Because we don't know if they're reaching millions of people. about food or whatever, what they ate in a day, where they barely talk about ethics, you don't know if that's having more of an impact than someone like Ed who talks about ethics. You don't know. We literally don't know. We all hope that with the direct message and talking about the ethics, we care about the animals, which is why we do it. But we don't know that maybe this individual who's doing the lifestyle stuff, maybe they care about the animals, and this is why they do it the way they do it, because they see a response and they see that it works better. So it's important to consider that and not just to completely judge people based on the fact that they don't talk about ethics and there's some kind of monster. And it's like, no, they serve a purpose within this online space of, you know, veganism and animal rights. They do absolutely serve a purpose as long as they're not doing anything that's counterproductive to the animals and causing the animals harm. They serve a purpose. And just to touch on the last point here, to talk about this critiquing and criticism thing, I absolutely agree with you. It's something that I feel like a lot of people who criticize, not a lot, in fact, actually 99% of the ones who are doing this criticism, they're not doing anything. They're not doing any activism, like, especially they're not doing any online activism, that's for sure. You go on to their channels or their Instagrams, the ones who end up, you know, causing a load of shit and trying to like give you shit for what you're doing, like 99% of the time they have never posted one thing about veganism, the animals, not even nothing. And or if they are posting, it's unrelated topics, like unrelated to animal rights, like as we've just talked about, recipes and stuff, which there's nothing wrong with. But if you're going to criticize someone for speaking about the animals, you better be speaking about the animals yourself, right? If you're going to offer advice, you better know what you're talking about before you offer advice. But I feel like this is a whole,
lead by example, right?
Yeah, do it yourself. Yeah, there's a whole other topic here, but I feel like we've entered into a world now where people feel like they're self-entitled. They've got a platform, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Anybody can have one, and they feel that because you have it, it means that you deserve to be listened to, even if you have nothing to back up what you're saying. They feel like if you don't listen to them and you don't take them seriously, then you're a bad person. And it's like, no, I have no obligation to take you seriously if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You have no credentials or experience. You have every right to tell that individual, thank you, but no thank you, go away. And if they don't take it well, you block them and move on. Like, I don't understand I do understand. We've got to this point where people feel like they should be listened to regardless of whether or not what they're saying is of note. Are you following me here?
100%. Yeah.
No,
like we definitely have. It's an interesting dynamic now. I haven't thought about it like the way that you put it, but the fact that everyone has this like little megaphone in their iPhone, they've turned their iPhone into a megaphone. They can like scream on social media and stuff like that, and yeah, they kind of like demand to be heard. And it's like it's funny because a lot of the most I don't know, maybe that's not true. It's like, if you're so educated on it, go write a book, man. Go write a book on it, and then people will read it, and then they'll learn what you know, and then they'll do it. You know,
absolutely. If they agree,
yeah.
If they agree,
and actually, here's the thing. Wait, that was a stupid comment. I take that back, because no, I do in a way, because that's stupid. Because you should absolutely have the right to, I mean, you don't have to be an expert in everything to have an opinion, and dialogue and debate is good. Like I love debating things, but it's like a tiny little bit of humility goes a long way. Like knowing that if you are not an expert, and even if you are an expert, there are people that disagree with you and have as much or more experience with the other point that you're making, right? So unless you know a shit ton, which most of us don't know shit about shit, then just, you have an opinion, but your opinion, you have to recognize, is formed by what you've been exposed to. And maybe David Rams has been exposed to other things that I haven't been exposed to. So as much of an expert as you might think you are, like, leave some space for other people's experiences and knowledge, and you'll become much more of an expert. But a lot of people just want to plug their ears and say, I know the best because I read one article, I read a book, and so I know the best.
Absolutely.
It's like, okay.
And this is we'll close up on a very funny example of this in action, of this, you know, I know best, I know what I'm talking about, you don't, you need to shut up and you need to change. This is happening a lot right now, from vegan to vegan, and from not. Do you know what? Actually, it's mainly from vegan to vegan, and not necessarily from non-vegan to vegan. It's vegans trying to tell other vegans that they're doing things wrong. And one of my I'd say like Instagram friends, let's say, I don't know him personally, but we've been talking for a while, is Cosmic Rationalist on Instagram. You should check him out. Really, really good account. Really cool guy. And he's showed me two
on Instagram.
You said? On Instagram, yeah, Cosmic Rationalist. He showed me two examples of this where I really want to just talk about them real quick and give you these stories because it's so funny. So he's been putting out some really unapologetic, direct, you could say more aggressive videos about veganism, and he has had comments from vegans who are telling him that his approach and what he's saying is offensive, and he shouldn't be doing it, and it turns people off veganism and blah blah blah. And anyway, they have also told him the main reason that people have been upset with him is because they've said his approach is ignoring the fact that there are indigenous people that can't go vegan, or you know, that have been hunting for years, and telling them that what they're doing is wrong. It's not right for him to say that because he himself is not an indigenous person, right? This is what they're attacking him with. And he's responded saying, and also, sorry, they say he's ignoring the effects of colonialism when he does this, because a lot of the, you know, a lot of the East, you know, other parts of the world have been affected by colonialism, which is why they now consume more animal products than they did before. And he's ignoring all of that by saying to people they should go vegan. Apparently it's insensitive, is what their main arguments were. Completely ignoring the fact that, or no, I guess they didn't know this, they're ignorant of the fact that he himself is an Indian. So he lives in a colonialist country every day of his life, you know, that's the effects of colonialism are there in India. And not only that, but he's from Northeast India. So he is actually an oppressed minority within an oppressed group, if that makes sense. So these Aborigine people, or whatever they call them, indigenous people, sorry, the word, he is an indigenous individual, is considered that way in India. And twice he has told these people, there's two separate vegans who attacked him. Twice he explains to them how actually he's a Northeast Indian, so he is an indigenous person, and he lives in a colonialist society. And guess what happened? They blocked him.
Cancelled.
Blocked him. No, they blocked him. They blocked him both times. These individuals who were claiming they were out there to defend indigenous people, to defend, you know, and tell him what's right and how he should speak and how what he's saying is wrong and here's why it's wrong. The second he proved to them that actually I am what you're saying, I should, you know, I'm the person you're saying not to offend, they blocked him.
Yeah.
This is the world we're in. People can't handle the fact that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And when they realize, like, oh, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, the response isn't that they say, well, actually, maybe you're right. I shouldn't have jumped the gun. You know, continue your good work. They just block you and carry on attacking the next person for, you know, something they think is wrong. It would be funny if it wasn't sad, I think. But it's a funny example because, you know, the screenshots are hilarious where he's like explaining to them and then they just block him and he's like, what the fuck? Like, you were just trying to defend me without knowing you were defending me. And then when I explain to you that it's me you're trying to defend, they block him. They're like, oh no, actually, I want to listen to indigenous people, but just not you because you're telling me something that I don't want to hear. Right. So I feel like this is a very representative of the world we're in right now, where everybody wants to be heard, but they don't want to be told, you know, piss off, you're wrong, and your advice isn't needed or accurate. And it's created this position where we're in, where we have to do a live stream to talk about how all approaches are necessary, because people seem to think that theirs is the right one because they read a book. You know, it's a shame that we're in this position.
Here's the other thing too, like, you know, if I'm being honest, I mean, I do believe that the AVO approach is the best approach to one-on-one conversations.
Yeah.
For two reasons. One, I wouldn't be teaching it if I thought there was something better. That doesn't make any freaking sense at all. And then the second one is that, like, this is a collection of 20 years of learning and studying and teaching and learning and modifying what I know and what I do and that sort of thing. So it's the best that I have right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But that being said, I don't know 100% that it's the best approach. I know that it's the best approach that I have right now. And if I go and start shitting on people, like imagine if Avo's website, as opposed to like encouraging people and being like a positive motivator to you know, people that want to learn stuff, I just created a blog and told everyone how shit they are at outreach. You guys fucking suck. And you guys have no idea what you're doing. And like, yeah, whatever. Like, is that going to inspire people to change? So even if you have knowledge, even if you are an expert, it's funny because the true experts are not the ones that are putting people down. Usually.
No, of course not.
That's an ego thing. You don't have to do that. If you know that what you're doing is good, then like go and spend time inspiring people. And don't waste your time with people. Like, I'm not going to waste my time, you know, arguing with someone if they're like, your method's stupid, coaching is dumb. I'm like, all right, go do your own thing, man. And maybe, you know, maybe your approach will hit some people too. Like that's good for you.
Exactly.
And you don't need to waste your time. So a lot of times people that are screaming and yelling the loudest are kind of, I don't know, they're probably not the people we should be listening to, I think.
Absolutely. I think that's most of the time, to be honest with you. And I agree with you. And then when you said that your approach is you believe your approach is the most effective one on a one-to-one basis, and you wouldn't be teaching it otherwise. And I think 99% of the time I do take that, I use that approach 99% of the time. I've added my own take on it, and I'm sure you would, you know, want people to do that anyway. You don't want everyone sounding exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I think
when I say that, I don't mean my style, because I'm an individual and my style is very different. That type of methodology, the kind of coaching framework.
Yeah, absolutely. The coaching that the workshops you give. And I think it depends, again, we're coming full circle, but just to reiterate this, it depends on the goal that you have. If your goal is to change the person you're talking to, then an approach that includes a lot of coaching, approach that includes holding somebody accountable in a way that makes them want to change, is important, of course. If your goal is to generate social media views and shares and comments and get debates started, then there's an argument to say that approach maybe isn't the best one. Maybe that approach is not going to be as dramatic enough to get the kind of social media buzz that you want. So then you would spice it up a bit. You would be a little bit more aggressive. You would ask a few questions that you know are going to get someone defensive, because that's good for the video. It gets some drama. And of course, it's not like it won't make this person go vegan. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's like wrong to do that. It's just that, is it as effective? There's an argument to say no, it's probably not as effective, but it's still effective. That's the thing here. It's not like it is or it isn't. It's like there is a scale. There is like, well, this probably works the best. This thing probably won't work as well, but it'll do something. It's not like it's going to literally not have any impact if you don't do it a specific exact way. I think we need to get this idea out of our heads, you know?
Yeah. And like I just repeat, if you know a better way, then stop trying to be right. Stop trying to boost your own ego about it, and start learning on how to be effective and how to get more people to be effective, right? And this is why I'm so excited to have data to know what is effective, because it's not going to matter. You can talk all you want. And this is why I love sales. I love working in sales, because you could talk all the shit you want, but at the end of the day, like, your results speak for themselves, you know? And that, like, I'm very excited to learn from people as well, because I know there are amazing people out there. I'm really excited to like pick people's brains that are having good results and be like, what are you doing? Like, what sorts of things are you incorporating in your conversations that are getting people that are motivating them to want to go and watch Dominion or go and, you know, take sign up for vegan boot camp and like spend hours, you know, trying to change their behaviors. Like, what are you doing? So that's all that's going to matter. And the people that want to, you know, yell and scream about it can keep doing that. But it's sad. Sure. Like that's kind of bums me out a little bit about the, you know, I get why, like, we're a bunch of passionate people. This is a fucking horrible injustice that's happening, and we're angry and we're frustrated and we're mad. And so, like, I feel like we often take it out on each other, which sucks, because at the end of the day, like, we all have the same values. All of us, you know, have the same end goal in mind. And yeah, we might disagree. And there's also people like with just different levels of experience. Like, I definitely don't have the same strategy now that I did, you know, 5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shit changes. So we also have to be like understanding that I hate saying that, we're all on our journey, but we are in a way, you know, we're learning, and like you can be like everyone can be a positive force for change, or you can just cause more shit and conflict in the movement, which is exactly what is counterproductive to learning and developing. So
yeah, unfortunately I think this whole causing shit in the movement thing, I think it's a symptom of the society we're in right now. And unfortunately, a lot of vegans, they fall into, I'm not going to get into this so deeply, but they fall into other categories of people who are acting in a certain way. Vegans tend to fall into a specific area of society, especially new vegans, you know, younger vegans. And this area of society is hell bent on causing shit and attacking others. So unfortunately, veganism as well, not all vegans obviously, but quite a lot of these people who are doing this shouting, they also fall into that same category of people who are shouting at everyone for everything they can possibly find. You know, the kind of people who look into someone's Twitter past to see if they said anything bad 10 years ago. These are the same kind of people. And I think we're experiencing a lot of that as a result of this you know, culture of let's go and fuck people, you know. Like it's cool to do that, even if the person's vegan. It's still cool to do it. You know, it makes people feel good in a world where, you know, finding a purpose is becoming harder and harder for most people. This is a lot of people's purpose, I guess, to shit on others. So, but yeah, I guess we'll close up, man. You look like you're hungry, so you can shoot off. I'm gonna stick around here for a little bit longer, and you can, before I go and grab some lunch. Do you have anything you want to say before you shoot off? Any closing statements, closing remarks?
Only that you are not allowed to disagree with anything I said when I'm not here. So if you want, you can message me, you can WhatsApp me, and I'll jump back up. No, I'm just kidding. No, thanks. Yeah, it was a good discussion. I like it. And yeah, like I said, I think we're very closely aligned. Yeah, we might differ 1% of our opinion, but that doesn't make you a bad person, David. It drives me nuts when people like judge the character of someone else because they disagree with, you know, with things that, fuck, I mean, that we all struggle to truly understand. Like, there's so many complexities and so many different things, and we've had this conversation before where like it's just it's so egotistical just to pretend that you know anything, you know, like, or that you know the truth 100%. I mean, we never know that. So
I'm going to do another stream at some point where I'm going to bring on some interesting characters, No, they're real people. They're not cartoon characters. Where they're going to come on, we're going to talk about some of the more related to veganism, but more related to like society in general and why we're seeing a lot of the things we're seeing online. It's going to be, we'll link it in with animal rights because a lot of it is showing up in our spaces and it's in animal rights spaces and it's not starting to cause a problem. It's been causing a problem for a long time. So maybe you could join that, man, at least for a little bit. I'll let you know when we're doing it. We'll talk about that. It's stuff that I know you've got an opinion on, but whether you want to share that opinion or not, I'm gonna have to leave that up to you. It's gonna be spicy.
It depends on, you know what it is. It's like I purposely stay out of conversations that I have strong opinions about, because I know that the majority. That sounds super bad as well. It's not the majority. It's just there's a loud minority, probably a loud minority that like can't handle differences of opinions, and that's not to say that my opinion's right necessarily, right? It's an opinion based on what I've learned up until now, but my opinion is always open to change, and it's why I'm vegan. It's why, you know, so it's like it's my current opinion, and I can usually back it up pretty well and pretty intelligently, I think. But when people don't want to have that conversation, and at the end of the day, like you and I, we're okay to disagree on things, even more sensitive topics. We might disagree on things, but yet we don't judge each other. We don't call each other pieces of shit, at least to our faces. No. I say it a lot behind your back, but not to your face.
Oh yeah.
So no, but you just have to sometimes like agree to disagree, and I'll have these discussions with people who are okay with that. And who I can learn something from, but people that just want to yell at you and you know, call you a piece of shit. What's the point of that?
Totally. Well, I'll let you know about that when we're going to do it, and you can decide whether you feel like it. But until then, we'll say goodbye for now. Go get some food. Thanks for joining the stream,
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone who was here, who watched. If you're still watching this,
yeah, man.
damn, good
60
on you
people,
guys.
dude.
And oh, and
60
last thing
people
too,
been the whole time.
wow, I like saying as well that like I like taking every opportunity I can just to share how lucky I feel to be a part of this movement in this community. Like, yeah, there's a lot of shit that happens, but at the same time, like I'm stuck here. I moved away from home, so I'm not anywhere near my family now. And the people that are around me, a lot of them are like kind of fairly new friends, and it already feels like family. And so everywhere I go in the world, I always feel like you have family there, and you develop this really strong bond with people very quickly. So yeah, I just want to say thanks to everyone who's doing this shitty hard work and putting yourselves through stress and anxiety and anger and all the shit that we go through. So yeah, it's nice to be a part of the community. I love all you guys. David, love you too, man.
Love you too, man. Nice. Like that closing statement.
Yeah, that's my closing statement. I'm going to leave before I say something stupid or something else stupid. All right, do I just click leave? Here's my stupid statement. Do I just click leave studio?
I can take you out. Don't worry. I've got it.
You can take me out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, man.
All right.
See you later.
Peace, everyone. Cheers.
All right. That was nice. That was a nice closing statement. And I agree with him in that sense. I think for the majority of the time, we've got a very good, supportive, loving community. It's just, there are some bad apples. There are some people that are, as I said, a part of like a different community or a part of another community, another kind of style of being, where they're looking for any reason to try and destroy your life or try and make you out to be some kind of fucking demon or evil or something. And yeah, unfortunately for people like me and people like I think Rob Banks has experienced a bit of this, but anybody who is being unapologetic with the message online is subject to taking some shit from these people. They are looking for anything and everything to come after you for. So it's kind of what inspired this live stream, and I hope we got some good. I mean, this is some good out of. We got some good out of it, right? These people that come out and criticize and say shit and make all these, tell you you're doing it wrong and you're doing too aggressive and you should be more caring and loving. Why don't you love humans the same way you love animals? Why don't you, all this kind of crap? It is annoying when you see it all and you're just like, fuck off. But at the end of the day, it brought us and made us do this live stream. So we turned something shitty into something good, turned something negative into something productive and positive. So hey, look, as much as I'd rather they didn't do that shit, at the end of the day, it's content, isn't it? It gets us on here. So guys, listen, I'm gonna wrap up soon, but I want to do a Q&A with you. I want you to ask some questions now. You can ask some questions for me, obviously not for Alex. I can pretend to be Alex. If you've got a question for Alex, I'm happy to do that. I can act as him. But yeah, give me some questions. Give me some. We'll do a quick Q&A. And remember, if you've enjoyed this live stream and you found it useful, you want to support me, you want to contribute, please do use the super chat option, because you can do that. You can get your comment up on here. I'll put it up on the screen, and we can all look at you and how generous you are by contributing, because you're such a good person, and it really helps me out. This is how I can continue doing this, is through your contribution. So please do consider that. And also, if you enjoy my content and you want to actually contribute to helping me make the content, so if you want to get involved in my scripting, if you want to get involved in my video creation process, if you want to see some exclusive content, videos that I won't post publicly, and other topics and doing other things, and nothing OnlyFans, nothing like that, but stuff that's not going to be public, then join the Patreon team. The link's in the description. The link is in the description. It's also in the chat. I just put it in the chat right now, and you can do all of that. So, for example, the last video that I did, the Santa Claus video, I got into my Patreon teams. We got into the Discord. We got in a voice chat. We discussed it. We talked about ideas and some good stuff. So we actually had the team contributing to that script. It was really cool. And then when the video was done, a lot of the lines that were suggested were in the script. So that was pretty cool. And you can also get involved with some of my future videos if you join the Patreon team. So join the team. So we have a question for Alex. Race Lever wants me to pretend to be Alex. Did you wear underoos as a child? I don't even know what underoos is. What's that? What's underoos? Oh, they're like briefs, basically. Yeah, we call those briefs. I'm going to go ahead and say that, Alex, did wear those and still does. That's what I think. Okay, Idine's got a question as well. How is your feedback from your Santa clip so far? The Santa video that I put out there, yeah, I think it's all right. I mean, I think people, I've not been reading that many comments over the last couple of days because of, like, you know, Christmas and stuff like that. So I've been just trying to like be here and do family stuff, you know. So I've not really checked out the comments, but there's been a lot of views. I think a lot of people shared it. It's yeah, it's doing all right. It was never going to be like a smash, you know. It was never going to be like a big video because it's just, you know, it's just silly militant vegan Santa. But it's doing all right considering. Yeah, I think so. It's cool. Guys, you have any questions relevant to this topic or other topics or whatever? Now's the time to do it, because I will shoot off if you don't. So you gotta give me some questions. You gotta let me know if there's anything you'd like me to answer, anything you want to. And whilst I'm waiting for you, I'll just explain a few things then. So there won't be any videos from now until I won't be making any new videos between now and the 3rd of December. I'm going to have a little I wouldn't say break, I would say more of like, I'm not going to be editing or filming for this little time, but I'm going to be working. I'm going to be doing some like scripting. I'm going to be doing some putting some ideas together, doing other things, trying to take a breather, let's say, from this creating videos, because then what it can do, it gives me a bit of distance, and then it allows me to really think and, I don't know, get excited to make new videos with new ideas. When you're constantly pumping out videos one after another, you can get lost in this, you know, world of just like, oh, so many things going on, and it can be a bit overwhelming. So I'm going to take a little week between now and New Year's instead, and then I'm gonna hopefully then come back and have a lot more, like, you know, some new cool interesting ideas and a different take, as I don't want to just keep putting out the same kind of stuff. I want some new fresh ideas and stuff. Dania is asking, how do you handle confrontations from apologists? So I'm guessing you mean here, like, if someone's being apologetic, making excuses for non-vegans, not being I don't know, as direct, and or I don't know, like encouraging people to continue abusing animals even though they're vegan. I normally make a comparison with them. I will tell them, would you take the same approach with any other injustice? Like, for example, racism is 2020 has been a massive focus globally, ending and calling out racism in some, you know, different systems and police and stuff like that. So would this individual take the same approach to that? Like, to say, if they're being apologetic about, you know, oh, well, you know, some animal abuse is okay and people have their journey, blah, blah, blah. Would they say the same thing about racism? And if they would, well, I mean, they wouldn't, or any other injustice, you know. So I normally make that comparison, and it normally makes them upset and angry, and then I just kind of like end the conversation after I've kind of laid that out. I don't really have time to deal with these individuals. When apologists, time or patience, to be honest, but when these people comment on my videos, if on my Instagram videos, if I see the comment, I will normally remove the comment, then send them a message, and I have a message that I've more or less kind of copy and paste to them, just to say your comment has been removed because it undermines the post, and the post isn't for you, it's for non-vegans. So, you know, don't do that again, because I don't want non-vegans coming to my page and seeing my video and being inspired to maybe go vegan, and then seeing a post from an apologist, a comment from an apologist, and then say, oh, well, this person's a lot nicer and they don't say I have to go vegan, so it's fine. I hate that idea that somebody would be influenced by them, and the strength of my message is undermined. So I tend to remove them as well. Oh, for the people who missed that, Annie's mentioned that, I meant to say 3rd of January, not 3rd of December, by the way. Race is asking, will you take Michelle Low up on her invite to discuss psychology topics you brought up? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe some point in the new year. I don't see why not. Don't see why not. We'll just see what the situation is, and if it's if it makes sense, then yeah. What have we got? Okay, Julian's asking, could you elaborate on Liberation Pledge being a moral obligation, since I would assume it related to making the world go vegan if someone doesn't do that because they want to talk to the non-vegans? It doesn't. So this is a common argument against the Liberation Pledge. If you don't know what the Liberation Pledge is, it is a pledge that you take that means that you refuse to sit and dine where there are animal bodies at the table. So it's something that you will call up in advance and tell everybody like, I'm not coming, I'm not going to sit with you if there's dead bodies at the table, if there's animal flesh at the table, I won't do it. Or that's how it is basically. You refuse to do it. That's the pledge. So elaborate on it being a moral obligation, assuming it relates to making the world go vegan. Well, if you do sit at a table where there are dead bodies at the table, like dead animal bodies, I'm of the opinion that is normalizing consuming animals. It's making it seem like this is a normal thing because you're sat there. So, and the alternative to that is to say, well, I want to speak to these people about it. Okay, the worst time to talk to somebody about animals, or in fact, the worst time to talk to somebody about something they're consuming being not good in any way is when they're eating the thing. Like, for example, let's just take animal rights away for a second. Let's look at vegan donuts, right? Imagine you're eating a vegan donut and somebody says, as you're eating your vegan donut, or you've just eaten a vegan donut, or you're about to eat a vegan donut, somebody starts to tell you about how these donuts are going to cause diabetes and kill you. Are you going to be receptive to the message when you've just ordered it, you're about to order it, you've just eaten it, or you're currently eating it? You're not. You're not going to be receptive to that message. You're going to be like defensive and pissed off because you're like, want to eat the donut. In that moment, your health is not of a priority to you in that moment. The donut that you want to eat is in the priority to you. So the common argument is, well, I want to sit with non-vegans and talk to them. The worst time to talk to them is when they're about to eat non-vegan food, or they've just eaten non-vegan food, or they are eating non-vegan food. It is the worst thing to do. For most people, they're going to be very defensive. You can still talk to non-vegans without it being at a dinner table, or if you've taken the pledge, you can encourage them to eat at a table where it's vegan, right? A vegan restaurant or a vegan cafe or your house. And then you can talk over the dinner table whilst all of them will have their guards down because they're eating non-vegan food. They're not going to have the guard up. So one more thing here, just on this point. Why do I think it's an obligation? Or I don't judge you for not taking the pledge, by the way. I'm not saying that if you haven't taken it, you're a bad person or something like that. However, I will tell you that if you would refuse to sit at a table where there was a dead dog, a dead cat, a dead hamster, or a dead budgie being eaten, then you will sit at a table where there's a dead cow being eaten. I'd say it's a little bit inconsistent that you would tell someone that all these animals are equal whilst you are treating them as they're not equal, right? So to be consistent with our message, I truly believe we should be consistent in this way and take a stand regardless of the species of the animal. If you take a stand, if it was a dog at the table, you should take a stand when it's a cow at the table. So I hope that answers your question on that. And if it's not clear, you can ask another question, and we'll keep going. We'll keep going through. We'll keep going forward. I'm just checking up the rest of the comments now and see if there's any more questions here. I can see you're all having some kind of debate here with some dude. I'm not going to get into that because I've not been following it, and I don't know where you're up to be honest. What have you learned from this conversation with Alex? Anything helpful? For me, I know Alex pretty well, and we've had many conversations. There's nothing. I feel like he'll feel the same way, in that I think we both know where we stand on this, and we both probably going to feel like this was cool. This is just me and him having a chat, but I don't think there's anything new for either of us, to be completely honest with you. I feel like we both knew each other well enough to know that we more or less know what we're going to talk about today, and that our positions on these things. Is there anything that I didn't know about Alex today? Any point that he brought up that I thought, oh, that was really interesting? Anything new? Obviously he said a lot of interesting stuff. At the moment, I'm struggling for something that's like really blown me away, because as I said, we've had these discussions in the past, similar discussions, but I think Alex mostly comes out with good stuff. You know, he chooses his words carefully. He's very, he's good. He's good at this stuff. He knows a lot. He's done a lot of training. He's trained a lot of people. That's why I wanted to bring him on. It wasn't necessarily for me to, learn from him, because I feel like I already have learned a lot from him. It was more for the sake of the discussion to bring somebody on who knows, has trained in a lot of the things we're talking about, and get a second opinion. So I hope, that answers the question. All right, anything else here? What have we got? I see you guys again still debating. Are there any questions for me, or do you just want to keep the stream going so you guys can debate in the comments? You look tired and you deserve a nice rest. That Santa video was a huge effort. Thanks so much. The cats, Asya, and Barsic. Asya, right? I want to say Isa, but I know that's not. I get those two mixed up when I see your name. It's Asya. Cool. No, thanks so much. I don't really feel tired, but then again, I think it's so dark here. It goes dark so quickly here in Finland, so I feel like maybe the lack of sunlight starting to take a toll on me and making me feel a little bit like, ooh, you know. I guess a lot of people are experiencing that now because of the winter, but no, thanks so much. Okay, I think I'm up to date on the comments now. Do you have any questions, guys? Do you have any questions? I'll give you a couple more minutes. I'm not gonna keep the stream going because you can debate. Okay, so you can debate. All right, we're gonna have to reach a point where the stream ends. You're gonna have to take this debate somewhere else. Maybe this guy can join the Julian, which question was for me? I answered your question, or am I delayed here? Am I delayed? I answered your question, I thought. Wait, type it again if I missed it. Oh, we got a question from Vegan King. What's up, man? Do you think someone who eats animal products purposefully can call themselves vegan if someone ordered that food for them? No. I don't see that as even a debatable topic. I don't care if somebody ordered the food for me. You send the food back and you change it. And if you can't send the food back and change it, I don't know. I don't think you would okay, so we need to look into this as a thing, right? So for example, if you ordered food and it came to your home and you're the only person who ordered it, nobody else knows you ordered it, it's right there, then you got to have a question between, is the veganism, is it a moral thing that you're considering here, or is it about harming animals, right? Because let's imagine in this weird scenario that there's no way you can return the food is there, this really, you know, this scenario is probably never going to happen, but if it did happen, you can't return it, so your only choices are to throw it away or eat it. Morally, no way. Like I personally wouldn't eat it because it's not even a moral thing. It's a like, I don't want the products of animal abuse going in my body. I could not do it and I will not do it. However, if it's not possible to return it, then you cannot. What else are you going to do with it? It's not like you can reverse the harm that has been done. All right. So, in the sense of like, is it causing animal abuse to eat it? No, if you can't send it back. However, you can send it back 99% of the time. So you send it back, and you get the money back, and you are not contributing to that abuse. So I hope that makes sense as to what I'm saying here. It's if you can't return it, and it's impossible to do anything else with it, I personally would either give it to a homeless person or would feed it to an animal personally. But if I ate it, it's not like I would be causing harm to anyone else because it's done and I can't send it back. I can't get the money back. I've already contributed to it. I've made a mistake. It's done. It's fucked, right? It's over. But I wouldn't consume it because of what I've just told you. And I wouldn't encourage anyone else to consume it. You know, I don't know. You see what I'm getting at here? It's about if nobody else was there, if somebody does consume it and no one sees it and they don't influence anybody else and they can't get their money back, then it's done. I don't know. What are you supposed to say to them? Like, they've not harmed anyone. The mistake was made. They couldn't do anything about it. But at the same time, for my personal reasons, I wouldn't do it. So it depends on how you're looking at it. So I'm trying to say here, there's two schools of thought. There is the personal, ethical kind of, why will I not do this? And then there is is this harming animals or not? Yes, it's harming animals, so you send it back. If you can't send it back, then the harm is done, it's over. Then you need to decide, where do I stand on this? Am I going to eat this and you know, go against everything I believe in because I don't want to consume this, or am I not? But either way, the harm is done already at that moment. So it's and then you got to consider again, will it influence others to continue to abuse animals? Yes or no? If the answer is no, again, you have to make that decision. If the answer is yes, then you don't do it. I think I got too philosophical on that point, though, to be honest with you. I think it's too much for for this live stream. We could do a whole discussion on this topic, but the short answer, yeah, it's no. If somebody orders food for you, you send the food back. You don't eat it. Simple as that. In most situations, that's the position you'll be in. In a desert island situation where things are all weird and different, then maybe the answer would be different. But in 99% of situations, you're going to be able to send it back, and you're going to be able to not get the money back and don't contribute to that industry. So that's exactly what you should do. Don't contribute to animal abuse. Simple. Thank you, Mehmet, for the contribution. Really appreciate that. And thanks for joining. And I hope you enjoyed this. I hope all of you enjoyed this. I really appreciate your super chat. Really appreciate all of you who contribute, who come here and watch and like and comment, and especially those who send a super chat through like this. It really means a lot. So thank you so much. Thank you. I think I've missed a lot of comments as well. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep looking. But where are we up to? I'll answer the last couple, I suppose, but these you guys are talking to each other so much. What? That's a weird question. If there were only two options for a healthy-ish horse at the slaughterhouse, and one was to leave it to get shot and the other was to employ it with light duties at a riding school, what would you choose? It's a desert island question. And it's one that I'm not going to answer because I'll never be in a position to choose that. So I don't really do this kind of, these philosophical kind of questions where of a situation where that's probably I'm never going to be in a situation to choose between. So yeah, no, I'm not going to get into it. It's not really, I'm sorry to disappoint you there, but there's not really a point in getting into that question. If you can make it more of like something a bit more realistic, something that's potentially like a real example of something that could really happen, then yeah, I'll consider it, but I'm not really up for answering anything like that right now, to be totally honest with you. Luis, you've made a comment, you've made a question you're telling me. I don't see it though. Can you copy and post it again, please? If possible. All right. Julian, what about doing anything social with non-vegans like gaming and partying? Not partying during COVID. Some vegans call other vegans apologists for playing games with their non-vegan friends. Oh, with non-vegans. That's stupid. I mean, look, you've got to balance out your energy is limited and humans are social animals. So you need to balance out when you get into these animal rights topics, when it's going to be most effective, when it's not going to make your life really, horrible to the point where like you can't talk about it ever again. I mean, imagine you bring the topic up in a situation where it doesn't go well. You're gonna have waste a lot of energy, and it's gonna make you feel really bad about talking about it again in the future. So I don't necessarily recommend that you bring a topic up in every single conversation. And also you need friends, you need a community around you, and you can't be expected just to completely exchange all of your friends for vegan friends. Although that does tend to happen, you can't be expected to do that. I have non-vegan friends still, and I have acknowledged that talking to them about this, it's largely pointless because I am their friend. It's not going to go well. They won't take it seriously. So I have acknowledged that is the way it has to be, and I can only hope that other people, they're influenced by other people, and that eventually one day they come to me and say, hey, can you help me with this? Because I've tried doing it the other way and it doesn't go well. And you're not an apologist because you see something that doesn't work, and you what do you think it's apologist to what's the opposite? What's the alternative to this, right? Is it to say that, okay, the real way to not be an apologist is to tell all of your non-vegan friends and family to fuck off unless they go vegan? Well, that's not sustainable. It's not effective, clearly. And it's going to, in the long run, it's going to make you less capable of talking to other people about veganism and animal rights, because you're going to feel like absolute shit. You're going to have no network. You're going to have no friends and family members to support you and be there for you, because they all don't like you because of this. And it's not about being liked, but it's about building a foundation for yourself that you can consistently talk about these things in a sustainable way. Get rid of everybody in your social life and your family life because they're not vegan is not sustainable, and it will not enable you to consistently talk about these topics. And isn't that what you want to do? That's how we create change. You can't just go for a Hail Mary and just tell everyone to go fuck themselves and hope it works, and then have no one to support you and completely cut all the ties. It just won't work. You got to balance it. You got to balance that out. All right. I'm still looking through your comments. I am vegan and I have 3 cats and they are obligate carnivores, but I have no choice but to feed them their cat food, which is animal products. I feel hypocritical. What's your opinion on it? I can give you my opinion on it, but you can't quote me on this because I'm not a vet. Okay, I'm not an expert on this. Please, can you do some research on this yourself once I point you in the right direction? But from my knowledge, cats are domesticated, which means that the diet that they're consuming, it's been created by humans, and from what I know is the only thing that they actually need that's from animal flesh is taurine, is one of the only things anyway that it's not possible. I believe that's the only thing it's not possible to get from a different natural source. Now, what's natural or not doesn't really matter because most commercial cat foods actually contain synthetic taurine. But even if it is synthetic, who gives a shit as long as it's not harming animals and as long as they are healthy? So there are vegan cat foods out there that include synthetic taurine and everything that they need to be healthy. So there are plant-based cat foods available. You can check those out. There are vegan Facebook groups, like Vegan Cats and Dogs Facebook groups, like thousands of people that are doing this. So please do check it out. And you can do some trials. I've heard that it doesn't work out for all cats. Okay, I've heard this, but I've also heard that there are many cats that live perfectly healthily on a plant-based diet, getting all the nutrition they need. And as I said, if the whole it's not natural thing bothers you, well, domesticating animals isn't natural either. But there we have domesticated cats. Whether it's natural or not is, in my opinion, it's irrelevant. What's relevant is we need to not harm animals to save an animal. Like, why do thousands of animals deserve to die to save 3 cats? It doesn't make sense. So please do research this and look into that, and please do try with your cats, but do it responsibly. Do it with help. Get help online. Get help from these vegan groups, these people who've already done this. Don't do it alone, and be careful, because obviously these cats depend on you, and you need to make sure you're doing right by them. So I hope that answers the question. Luis, you're asking me about a question. I can't see the timestamp, man. You're telling me at 12:55. I can't go back and see that. So I'm sorry, you're gonna need to post it again if that's possible. Yeah, post the question again if you want to ask it. All right, I'll wait for Luis. Okay, it's here. Okay, cool. Regarding the pledge, do you think that the buying part is the bad thing, not the eating part? Because after buying, the harm is done. You shouldn't go buy with them, but eating is... no, actually, no. In this case, like I spoke about earlier, it's about the influence as well. So, for example, in the example I gave, where if somebody orders takeout and it comes and they have no possibility to return the takeout food, but it's not vegan, and there's no one else in the room with them and nobody knows they've ordered it, and if they eat it, yes, of course they're not a vegan. However, there's no harm being done. There's no more harm been done than had already been done. So although I would definitely not do that myself, I would not do it myself. They've not influenced anybody else to do it, and nobody knows, and they had no choice. They could have thrown it away, given it to an animal, or they could have eaten it, but they couldn't have undone the damage, right? So the damage is done. So in that scenario, I personally, it makes me feel sick to imagine eating it, but I wouldn't necessarily go crazy at someone. I'd be for eating it, I'd go crazy at them for making the mistake in the first place, and not, that's the problem, is that they ordered the thing in the first place by accident or whatever. So in this situation you're talking about here, though, you are with other people. Therefore, your actions directly influence their actions. So if you sit there and you have you completely normalize eating at the table with these dead animal body parts, then in my eyes, you're telling them it's okay. And as I said earlier, it's the same comparison. If you wouldn't sit there with a dead dog at the table because you say that's not okay and I don't want to be there with that dead dog, then you absolutely shouldn't be there with a dead cow at the table. And if you do sit there with a dead cow or a dead dog at the table, you subconsciously tell everybody that this is not violence. This is totally fine. Because if it was violence, I wouldn't sit here. You get my point? If this was wrong and I believe it's violence and this is horrific animal abuse, you won't sit there if you believe that. And if you do sit there, it's contradictory to the message that you're giving when you tell them this is animal abuse, this is violence. Okay, so I'm Bretta Barnes. Yeah, about your previous comment about the if it's a real situation, I wasn't sure if you were just putting out a philosophical situation. So okay, you're talking about the question was about a horse who either goes to a slaughterhouse or goes to a riding center. Then I would say send them to the riding center because although I don't want them to be exploited, I think they would have a net positive life from living at a riding center versus going to a slaughterhouse. And if that center would never send them to a slaughterhouse, I'd rather them have some level of, I don't know, I personally would want them to have that life rather than being killed in a slaughterhouse as a healthy, I assume, young horse. I don't know. I personally would. It doesn't sit well with me to kill an animal. I'd sooner have them do something else, I guess. I don't know. It's a weird situation to be in, and I see your confusion. But my heart tells me, not my logic here. I'm using purely emotions. I don't want them to die, so I would take almost any solution that, even though they're still being exploited in a riding school, I would take that over sending them to a slaughterhouse. I can't tell you the logical reason behind it because I've not thought it over enough, but that's my gut instinct, okay? I'm still looking. Let's keep looking. Let's keep looking for some more questions from you guys. Yeah, good. This is a comment from Krishna. Animal dead bodies must receive a burial, not be eaten. I'm tempted to agree with you. Yeah, I personally, as I said, if there's a situation where I have the bodies are here now, it's done, it's there, I would be tempted to feed them to an animal that needs them to survive, because as I said, if it's a situation where there's no other way out, there's nothing else that can be done, that it's done. There's no way I can get the monetary contribution back. If that's been done already, then I would choose what I think is the most sensible option, which would be to at least have another animal not eat. Like if another animal's going to eat, and if another animal has to eat meat and they're going to eat it and they're going to be fed that, then I would rather prevent anybody purchasing more meat for that animal by giving them this product or whatever that has already contributed to animal abuse, if that makes sense. I wouldn't want someone else to contribute more when I could prevent that with whatever this product is, with this animal body is, if that makes sense. I'm not sure. It's been 3 hours now. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm making any sense anymore. So look, I'll just say as a disclaimer here, just take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt. I'm not the sharpest right now after 3 hours of live streaming, but I'll answer the last couple of questions for you, and we'll close up. All right, because I feel like I'm losing my energy a little bit. My chocolate oat milk shake is gone, and I need to eat something. So we got another question. What's your opinion on horseback riding? Some vegans have told me that it's okay because they've been domesticated, unlike wild horses, and they need humans, and if they form bonds together. Absolute bullshit. They don't need humans to ride on their back. No animal needs humans to ride on their backs to be healthy. They need exercise. Then take them out and fucking walk them. The vegans who are saying this are frankly full of shit. Please don't listen to them. Sitting on an animal's back, forcing them to submit to you, they call it breaking them in, and then they say, oh, we don't call it that anymore. Well, it's still breaking them in, isn't it? And they have to get into a state of learned helplessness where basically the horse realizes that there is no way for the horse to get away from the human. The human's going to keep trying to sit on them forever until they give in. So they just give in, and they learn that that's the life they have to live. It's animal exploitation. It's cruelty. It's abuse. I don't give a shit about what they talk about with this bond and all this nonsense. It pisses me off that vegans say this nonsense, but it is complete nonsense. Complete nonsense. Louise, follow-up question, but like you said, the harm is done already. Isn't it better to sit with them but criticize them instead of not even being present? No, we've been through this, dude. In my opinion, no, because by sitting with them, you're doing more harm because you are normalizing what is going on. And when you say criticize them, it's not going to do anything. Or it will do something, but it's not going to go well for you, because criticizing someone criticizing someone for doing something whilst they're doing it, just before they're doing it or just after they're doing it, is not going to go well. Like I said earlier with the vegan donut example, it doesn't matter if it's an animal product or if it's just you're talking about someone's diet here. Eating donuts is unhealthy. If you tell someone that whilst they're eating a donut, they're going to tell you to go fuck yourself. If you tell someone animals are abused for what you're eating or what you're about to eat or what you've just eaten, they're probably going to tell you to go fuck yourself. You're catching somebody at quite possibly the worst time to try to reach them, because they have just committed the act that you're trying to tell them they shouldn't have committed. Right there and then. It's just not the best time. So in my opinion, the best act you can do is to denormalize the situation by telling them, I won't even sit with you because of what you have on that table, just the same as you would if it were a dog. You say, this is what you're doing is so wrong that I won't even be present for it because it offends me that much. I believe it's so that wrong. It's disgusting. And I won't sit with you while you do it, while you engage in that act. The same way if someone was punching their partner or they were beating their partner, you wouldn't just like sit there, and if you knew they were going to do it in advance, you wouldn't go to the event where it was going to happen. You would say, no, I'm not going to go there and sit there while you do that. What's wrong with you? You're a piece of shit for doing that. Like in that situation, we'd be way more aggressive. But in this situation, people aren't as aggressive, and that's okay. But sitting there and eating whilst they're eating the dead bodies, the absolute minimum we can do is take a stand and say, no, I'm not even going to come, because that's wrong. And like I said, if it was a dog, you wouldn't do it. There are better times and ways to talk to people and criticize them than when they have a mouthful of animal bodies. Trust me. If you don't believe me, I mean, look, if you don't agree with me, that's totally fine. That's your call. I'm just saying, for me, eat at the dinner table or at a restaurant table, has historically been the worst time for me to talk about veganism. It is so awkward. And animal rights, it is so awkward, and people get so defensive, and it's been the source of some of the worst arguments I've been in. So I took a stand and stopped doing it, mostly because I wanted to stop normalizing dead bodies at a table, and secondly because I didn't find it to be effective even if I did sit there, because 9 times out of 10 you don't want to talk. You don't want to be the person that causes the big fight at the table either. You just don't get in, you stop getting invited. People stop inviting you to stuff as well, and then you'll have absolutely no influence on them. So there's so many reasons, but the main reason is, as I said, it's not to normalize dead animals being at a table. Like I don't want to sit there and normalize that. I don't believe that is the right thing to do. All right, one more question, all right, and then I'm going to shoot off, because as I said, I feel like I'm more rambling than I am nailing points down, because I'm reaching the end of my live streaming energy. 3 hours, 16 minutes in. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the burn, okay? I'm going to take one more question. I'm looking through now to see. Oh, there we go then. Okay, the last question will be a super chat. Maximil Vegan Plant Blessed. What is the most effective activism we can do beyond being a vegan, cubes, vigils, etc.? Greetings from the Animal Rights Square, Berlin. Oh, cool. I was out there with you guys a few weeks ago, right? It was really cool. Okay, what's the most effective? That is a question that I can't answer for you, because nobody knows. Nobody knows what's the most effective, unfortunately. But I can tell you this. What's the best activism you can do? The best activism you can do is the activism that you're doing. Okay, because listen, you are part of a tiny minority of vegans that actually do activism. I think when we look at our community, we seem to believe that we're all there's so many activists. We're all doing all these amazing things. We're such a big community. We're not. We are not. The amount of activists compared to the amount of vegans is insane. It's probably something like 1% or less of vegans are actually activists, all right? So what I say to you is this: whatever activism you're doing is the best activism you can do. Do whatever you can do. Don't look at Ed, don't look at James or Joey or Gary or me or anyone and think, oh, I'm not doing enough because I'm not doing what they're doing. Fuck that. You do what you can do and do as much of it as you possibly can. All right. It's all about what you can do and what you're most comfortable doing and what you can sustain. That is the best activism. That is the most effective activism you can do, because if every single vegan did activism and did as much as they could do sustainably, we would have so much more progress. So much more progress. All right. So if you're good at talking, go out on the street and do some talking stuff. If you're good at making videos, go make some videos. If you're not like really good at talking about the more controversial, let's say, that kind of stuff, like the ethics side of things, if you're not really good at that, or you don't feel comfortable talking about that yet, then do something else. Do some recipe stuff, do some lifestyle stuff, do some, I don't know, go do some positivity stuff. Like, it's all important. It's all counts for something. And I know that might seem like a vague answer to this question, but it's not a black and white topic. It is a gray topic about what is the best, what is the most effective. But what is black and white is that we need every single vegan doing as much as they can, as sustainably and consistently as they possibly can. So find what works for you and do it as much as you fucking can, or whatever it is. All right. We need you. We need all of you. And please encourage other people to also do it. You know, if you know somebody who's not talking about veganism or animal rights at all, like if you know somebody who's just not talking about it, don't be mean to them, but suggest to them, like, hey, why don't you talk about it in this way? Why don't you look, get some inspiration from this YouTuber or this Instagrammer, like go follow these people, like get them looking at other people who talk about it so they can get some influence and some inspiration to talk about it in the ways that they feel comfortable, so they'll keep doing it consistently and it's sustainable. I hope that answers that question. Thank you so much for the super chat. Maximilian, I'm going to guess it's you. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. And thank you for all of you who've joined today and all of you who are subscribers. Really appreciate your support here. I hope you've enjoyed it. Everyone in the chat, thank you so much. Guys, if you want to, I see you having a debate in the chat. If you want to catch this guy, like on, get his details or something like that, or her details, you better do it now because the stream's going to end soon. So do that. If you enjoyed this and you want to support and contribute and you want to get involved with future live streams, future videos, you want to be involved in the preparations and the execution of them and the ideas and the topics and all this good stuff, you can join my Patreon team, and you can get all of that through the Patreon Discord channel that we have. We're going to do a lot more of voice chats and streams there, private streams, where we're going to discuss this kind of stuff and strategies and tactics and all this good stuff. So please do come over there and join. You can join from $1 a month, which is really not a lot. I don't believe $1 a month is a lot. However, it really means a lot to me, because obviously if 1,000 of you do that, then that's $1,000 a month, and that's how I survive, right? So please do consider joining the Patreon team. I will pop that in there right now again in the chat. Thank you to everybody who already is a patron. And you guys are keeping the show on the road. Let's say you're keeping the show on the road. So really do appreciate all of you. And I'll be in momentarily for a very quick 10-minute little voice chat. If you want to come over to the Patreon exclusive Discord for a quick voice chat with me, you are welcome to. We'll be over there, but that's Patreon exclusive. So if you want to join, you have to join the Patreon team. You can come over there. Thanks, everybody. And I will... Oh, one more thing, just to remind you, I will be coming back on the 3rd of January. Between now and the 3rd of January, I may just post a video, but it's not a guarantee. There may be one video. There won't be a live stream. There won't be any 5-Minute Friday between now and then. It's going to be a week of either I may post this video that I've got saved. It's ready to go. I may not. But aside from that, I'll be only available in the Discord. I'm not going to be on YouTube. I'm not going to be in Instagram. I'm not going to be on Facebook. I'm going to take a social media hiatus for that time as well, just to kind of reestablish and get some shit together and get my head together and get ready to smash it in 2021. But I will be in Discord. So join the Discord. Links in the description. Once again, thank you everybody for joining, and I will see you all very, very soon.